Happy Wednesday, everybody. We are back with another edition of the really fun, really wild monthly competition, RoyaleMSTRS King of the Hill. I'm Rich Slayton, that's Andrew Guy, and this is where we get 8 people who've made it all the way through their qualifiers to here, and they play for Andrew a whole big pile of cash.
Yeah, I mean, the coolest thing about King of the Hill is you never know who's going to come out on top, and then every single time that you win, you get $100. Like, that's got to be the most fun way to play Clash Royale. And since it is King of the Hill, we don't have any duel mode. We don't have any of that in-game stuff. It's just straight up, good old-fashioned. You pick your deck, and you come out, and you see what you got. I absolutely love this format, and I love the big names that it always brings in every month, man.
Yeah, there are some killers that we have this month in a really fun version of King of the Hill. Of course, if you're used to CRL and you're used to competitive style, this is not 3 versus 3 in teams. This is you, alone in the game, trying to maintain your top position on top of the hill. Andrew, let's talk a bit about what we're actually doing here today.
Yeah, let's break down that format. I know you've been doing Teams King of the Hill again. It's been super, super fun to watch, but this, like you said, man, very, very different. Best of 1. And the way it starts is basically you were seated in this qualifier that happened yesterday, 1 through 8. The person in first and second place, they're going to start us off, and whoever wins that matchup will stay King of the Hill. We're going to play 24 matches today. Every single time you win, you get $100, and every single time you lose, you go back to the end of the line. Not back to where you were when you started, but back to the end. So, you know, some players will get maybe 4 chances, some will maybe get an extra one. It all just depends on how long you stay up on top and where you end up in that line. But like we said, $100 for every single win, $3,000 given away today. And I mean, like you said, it's a Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. Why not play some Clash and pick up a few grand?
And it is best of 1s, no deck restrictions. We're going to see some, I think we'll see a lot of certain cards make their appearances today, but we'll see some people take some big risks maybe, right? Because as soon as you win, you're on, and you keep on winning, you stay on, you keep on piling that cash. It should be an interesting situation to see if anyone really goes wild and tries to disrupt the Firecracker, Royal Giant, and occasional Lava meta that we've had right now.
I know. I mean, that is really, really the meta that we're living in. Evoed Skellies have basically not existed. And the super fun thing about the King of the Hill format is while there are no deck restrictions, you'll still see snipes here and there, and you'll kind of see the format evolve. You and I have talked about this for years. Every single time there's a competition, there's almost like a meta of the day that slowly evolves. With King of the Hill, because players get so long to kind of sit back and think about what they want to do next, you do see some pretty cool evolutions of almost snipes by the end of the day. You know, like, I think last month we saw a lot more Monk by the end of the day because we saw so much Firecracker, so much Royal Giant. The Monk ended up being a huge, huge factor for the pushback and obviously the Reflect. But dude, I've been watching your GKRs, I've been watching your Quesos, and it has just been non-stop. I mean, honestly, and top ladder, it's just Firecracker and RG everywhere. And like you said, the occasional Lava. I hope we see a little bit of a change up today, but I really doubt it, especially with the big names that we have here today. You know what they're working on.
We do have a really great lineup, and we're starting off with the top 2 in that lineup, Vitor and Aslan, both former world finalists for Clash Royale League, here today to kick us off in this competition. And you see skeletons, but of course, Andrew, they are not in the Evolve form.
Yeah, not in the Evolve spot. And then, of course, there is the unlikely chance that you forget to play an Evolved card. Was it Ian? I can't remember. I was watching your broadcast.
Oh, yeah.
I believe they were set the wrong deck link, and they had no Evoed card at all. So that's another thing. While we did see some no Evos at all last month, it was really only a couple times, and it was basically just minor Loon cycle. I hope that we don't see any accidental non-evolutions, but I do hope that we see some non-Evos on purpose.
Sure.
Did that make sense?
Yeah. Well, look here. We have a Firecracker from Vitor. I wonder if he's playing like a Evo RG Firecracker deck, unless, you know, our evolutions not permitted in this competition and we just missed the memo here. And this is the deck I actually wanted to talk about, Andrew. We're seeing it both directions. This Ram Rider deck, oh, there we go. So we are seeing Evo Firecracker from Gen C Aslan. This Ram Rider deck has been making a bit of a popularity bump because of its ability to play against Royal Giant. So this is one that I'm really curious about how much we're going to see today.
Yeah, there's a lot of great parts of this deck, whether it's the Bird and Sizzle from the Inferno, obviously not going to be pushed or hit by that Evoed RG knockback. You have the Barb Barrel to get through to the Evoed Firecracker and get the swing in. You've got the Ram Rider to slow down the RG, and of course, you know, the Monk. The Monk can help in both ways. So yeah, this is a really, really strong deck, and this is exactly what we're talking about, how the meta evolves with, you know, these cards that, you know, every single time a card or a deck gets super overpowered, it does become like the most played deck, but there does always come an evolution from it to counter it, and I think we're finally getting to that point.
Well, there's, you know, a couple of key factors for this deck against Royal Giant, and the Inferno Dragon is certainly one that's way up there. But the two things to really think about when you're talking about the evolved Royal Giant are the Monk and the Ram Rider Snare, and the ability to keep, that's not just the slow, but it's keeping the RG out of tower range, because the real danger is when it starts stomping when it's shooting, right? So those skeletons get so much more value when you're able to prevent the stomp from happening. And we've seen how much of a key factor the Ice Spirit has been, the Electro Spirit has been, Log has been, and maybe even more important than having buildings, shockingly enough, against an evolved Royal Giant.
Well, absolutely, because not only do you get, you know, a good response to that RG, but you actually have a faster cycle, and the buildings are just kind of like, it feels like you're using an old solution to a new problem with buildings, but really it's all about what you're talking about and making sure just those RGs don't shoot. And even though we're not seeing any RGs, the Firecrackers have been doing a very, very good job being controlled. But Rich, we haven't even talked about the fact that Vitor looks like he didn't play the Evoed Firecracker. So like exactly what we were talking about, a big, big mistake there. I don't know if Vitor forgot, I don't know if he didn't know, but clearly against Aslan got the memo.
Yeah, for sure. And that seems like an oversight. I don't believe that Vitor's trying to make a statement here. There's no statement that's worth that $100 plus more from winning the hunt.
So RGs and, or excuse me, Ram Riders in both directions for a bit of a snare there. It does connect though, the Fireball and the Rage Health.
Yeah, I mean that combination, opening up the pathway and speeding up the Ram Rider. Just, it's so annoying when you think you've got her, and then the charge kicks in and she just barely sniffs the tower down by a few hundred HP.
The other thing that I forgot to mention when you were talking about why, you know, this deck is so good, why that snare from the Ram Rider is so good, and you were talking about the skeletons. It's so nice to be able to have skeletons actually be impactful again, because it felt like goblins were the only ground bait troop, cheap troop, that was able to at least get a little bit of damage in on that Evoed RG, whereas now with that snare, with the Ice Spirit, those skeletons finally have some value again. Nice connection here from Vitor.
Yeah, really great connection. It puts him back in the mix. The question is, can he break through one more time? I don't know how well he wins this bridge fight. Now, especially with the Firecracker, Reflection will help here if it does hit in time. And here we go. Final 15 seconds. This is the race. Can Vitor break away? And that Lumberjack absolutely shreds the Ram Rider, and that's going to be GG well played.
That Lumberjack put in a lot of work, and I mean, it's interesting because a big part of this, it feels like, probably did come down to the fact that there was no Evoed Firecracker. Even though the Firecracker wasn't a huge part of Gents Aslan's like game plan to win, you know, it was controlled very well by Vitor, but just having to think about it, you know, just having to think about dealing with that splash damage just really, really handicaps your defenses.
Yeah, that was a pretty huge gap, and you know, you see some of the where that gap really ended up being a problem is not so much in the tower damage, because the Evoed Firecracker wasn't doing tons and tons of damage on the tower for Aslan, but it was in how those bridge fights went down, who ended up breaking through and breaking away. And also, the other thing about it, too, is this is actually really important to think about, is the Fireball for Aslan didn't have to be saved to stop an Evoed Firecracker from being involved in the game, and it allowed him to use it for breakthrough more, and that was massive.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest complaint right now about that Firecracker is just the spell damage and the elixir that it must always pull out, because late game, you're not going to want to have to spend 4 for 3, especially when that 4 is your spell that you're going to need for bridge pileups, and you kept talking about it throughout that battle, man. Those bridge battles were just not going to go the way that Vitor wanted without having that support from the Evoed Firecracker and without being able to pull that Fireball away. So, you know, a bit of a fortunate start from Gents Aslan, but a good start from him. And, you know, a thing that we haven't even talked about yet, man, is the amount of heavy hitters that are here between Soki, Aslan, Vitor, Adriel, it's Basodo. They're all just like right there on the cusp in terms of points, you know, just outside of striking distance is a lot of them, but people like, you know, Soki, someone that I forgot about, is so high up on that leaderboard at rank number 9. You know, this is great practice to get in against some of the big hitters.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, I'm just going to double check this one here, just to confirm, because I want to say Soki is number 9. Oh, well, Soki, and Andrew, this is what's annoying me about Clash Royale.
Oh, right, he's like number 5, right?
It's not just number 5, it's that Sosa, right? Like, the Igor Hazard, but then there was Hazard, and Soki is Sosa, and basically every single Blizzard was...
He's been trading those two names off for like 2 seasons now. I don't know why.
I mean, Dandelion, but then Blizzard, and basically every player from old CRL East has changed their name in the course of the last year and a half. And I'm just like,
was Dandelion the one that became Butterfly for a minute also, or was that a different? Because I was trying to remember who became Butterfly when they changed their name, and I cannot remember.
I don't. It might have been. Dandelion's been a lot of different names, and then Line is something different now, I think, and everyone just.
Even Riley is going by Takuma, right?
Yeah, he has that other. I think he's primarily Riley because the YouTube channel, but he does have the Takuma account, which you just forget that that's Riley sometimes if you're not paying attention. So, just everyone use your name, please. It's so hard.
It makes it a little bit easier on us, as a missed King Tower activation there from Adriel, and he's yet to show his Royal Giant. I cannot decide between Firecracker and Royal Giant which one is more frustrating. I think Royal Giant early game is more frustrating, and Firecracker late game is more frustrating.
Yeah, I think that Firecracker is one of those ones where it just blows you open so fast, and it's literally explosive. Whereas the Royal Giant, it does feel like, look, there are some matchups with the Royal Giant that I think the Royal Giant matchups might be more polarizing when you don't have the correct matchup for it, whereas the Firecracker just steals wins from you in really annoying, stupid ways. But they both have their strategies, right? Firecracker, it's all about controlling the bridge fight and really trying to re-angle Firecrackers towards the middle and not let them get that devastating shot off. And with the Evo Royal Giant, it's just don't let it shoot. Once it gets in rhythm, you're in a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah, and then like the negative elixir trades when you're playing against RG and just getting it right at the bridge is really, really tough, because if you're ever down an elixir, you don't usually have your best response, and usually your cheapest response is something that's going to get taken off the board by its splash damage. So still a lot of fun in dealing with these Evoed cards, as Aslan is rocking that Firecracker once again, just going right back to the same deck that worked in game number 1, and Adriel changing things up.
And just to confirm on that, Sosa, a.k.a. Soki, there are a couple different score metrics for it, but if you take out the 5 golden ticket winners, I believe that he is actually 3rd currently on the CRL list, which is a huge come-up for the guy.
Yeah.
But, you know, talk about come-ups, let's also talk about Adriel, who has one of the most interesting long-term stories in competitive Clash Royale, between his qualifying but not able to participate in CCGS many years ago, and then his challenges with CRL last year, his tremendous run at end of 2021. Currently, Adriel is number 5 overall. And this is what I'm talking about. You can't let the Evo Royal Giant get penetrative and get in rhythm, and you see the result right there.
Yeah, I mean, a really, really great counter push there from Adriel, just playing good defense and then getting that RG up front, getting it so protected. And the Fishboy and Monk have been working really, really well, obviously, with that RG, but it just feels like every single time it has lined up perfectly for Adriel.
Yeah, this has gone very well for him, and this will be a pretty easy one to finish off. GG, well played. So far, these reigns have been quite short. No one making the dynasty happen early on.
1-1 early on. Against Aslan, going to go back to the end of the line there behind Vitor. As you guys can see, Samuel Basodo is up next, and Basodo one of those guys that it feels like his best chance to get to World Finals, Rich, at this point is just a golden ticket.
Yeah,
I mean, he is at 12th, which means he's right in that striking range, but I just worry about his consistency for the next couple of months.
Yeah, that's one of those big questions, right? Is how do you stay consistent? How do you actually get to the finish line? Here's the reality, though: is all it requires is one good month. You have one good pop-off month of these next two, even just a solid one, right? And even for many of these players, simply making it to the round robin stage will be enough for them to qualify for Worlds, depending on who else shakes out.
Yeah, and you have to imagine that those guys in those top spots, you know, and just to give you guys some reference, even though this is not CRL, but we have a little bit of time, you know, other than our golden ticket holders, we have Morten, Faust, Sosa/Soki, Ruben, Adriel, Basodo, and Rainbow. So you have 3 people that are in this competition here today that are really just right there, as you're talking about. Just need one good month. And then, of course, Morten talking about how he's basically already locked in World Finals. So, I mean, I know he has. I mean, I feel like he definitely has. I mean, he has like a crap load of points. He has like 100 more points than people like a few spots away from him. And you know he's going to still show up in the next couple monthly, at least round robins.
Yeah, no, he's. I mean, if he takes his foot off the gas, there is a danger, right? The points that Morten has right now don't technically, mathematically secure it, but they effectively secure it as long as he plays even like half of what Morten's capable of. But Samuel Basodo, who is currently high on that ranking list, but keep in mind, he's still, if you take out the golden ticket holders, he's in that top 7 rank. He's in that World Finals position. So Samuel just has to defend that position, but you know there's so many hungry people right behind him. Air Surfer's right behind him. Kick-Ash is right behind him. Ta, the guy we saw open up our show today, Vitor. A lot of people who are talented players are in that top 20 range and are just nipping at the heels of guys like Samuel Basodo and Rainbow. Both these guys, Adriel and Samuel, are currently 5th and 6th in the actual standings for those 7 top spots. So they're in World Finals contention. But man, you got to be nervous about those guys behind you.
Yeah, the interesting start to our day. You know, we start off with a mirror match with the Ram Riders, then we go to RG against Firecracker, but now we finally get back to 2 of the most popular decks in the meta, the 2 decks that have basically dominated the meta for most of the time until really recently, it feels like, only other than RG. But basically Hoggy Q with Firecracker and this new, not new, but the Firecracker drill deck, whether it's with NATO or without, have been incredibly dominant. The cycle, if you guys can see, of Basodo's deck, when you have that Mighty Miner out, is just absolutely nuts.
Yeah, it gets around really fast. I mean, I've long-time drill player. I love drill overall. I like that there's viable options for it right now. And the drill Firecracker synergy. And what's really nice about the drill Firecracker synergy, and maybe we'll see this, we won't see it in this matchup because you're against Hog, but against some decks that play bigger troops in the back, especially some of the beatdown decks, the ability to use that drill to pull troops across the front of the tower and then connect the Firecracker on those is such a game changer, very similar to the drill Magic Archer builds.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that NATO plus Firecracker with drill combo just makes it like almost impossible to know where to play your cards. You know, where do you actually play to defend? And, you know, Adriel did a good job there, but if Basodo had his NATO in cycle still, he could have maybe pulled those guards back, and that's something that he's going to take that information, see how Adriel defended, and then maybe try to use those NATOs, because the aggressive NATO play with this deck is really the key to victory, I feel like.
Yeah, it's nice for Sam to have both the Ice Spirit, Log, Skelly's combination, the NATO, and the Inferno Tower, so that you can open up some of those offensive NATOs late in game. And we'll see what he does with it. Right now, just controlling Firecrackers at the bridge and taking his time.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really great call. I mean, you just said it there. He's got so many options to control the Hog Rider. The thing that he has to worry about is exactly this, which is getting that Monk down in the back as the Elixir starts to go faster and having to worry about 2 Hogs coming down in the time that he's just got 1 Inferno. So we'll see exactly how Adriel wants to send this next offensive push.
Well, having Inferno for Sam is nice as opposed to having the Bomb Tower, right? Because Bomb Tower would just be getting reflected by the Monk in the most brutal of ways, whereas the Inferno Tower can hold up a little better against that Monk. So Sam's certainly happy that he made that choice for this deck. But as you can see, just Adriel that little bit ahead. And the X factor here is that Sam does have to connect on tower, whereas Adriel doesn't. Adriel can just play good defense and then win by these earthquakes as long as he makes no mistakes.
And honestly, that's really what he should be kind of aiming for right now, is just getting hogs in when he has extra elixir and just EQ cycling, because of exactly what you're talking about, man. Sam has to make something happen, whereas Adriel can just kind of ride this wave all the way to the end, especially because this deck, with the monk on the ground, gets those hogs out at an insane rate. And eventually, Sam's going to have to overspend on defense.
And there you go. You see how fast the hog got in, plus the firecracker shot. What Sam really needs to do is get this Evoed firecracker to connect on that left-hand side. He has to take a big risk, and that NATO was not it. That NATO simply wasn't it, and now he's in a whole lot of trouble with 22 left.
And a good job by Adriel by playing a very unconventional defense with that earthquake right at the bridge. And he knows he's got the damage lead. He knows he needs to take care of the firecracker. It's the only way. A good understanding of the macro there. Really, really good understanding.
And here we go. He plays the Inferno Tower high. Samwell trying to find a way to make it happen. Not going to do it. And that's going to be Adriel being our first player to win back-to-back games and maintain their position as King of the Hill.
Yeah, and he's been playing it really clean. I like the decks he's been picking. I like the way he's been playing. It's been against good competition. You know, he showed that even in that last game with Aslan that, like, you know, we talked so much in game number 1 with Aslan and Vitor about how strong that deck was that Aslan was running, the Firecracker, Ram Rider, Lumberjack deck against RG. And it really did feel like Adriel was struggling for a while there, but then we saw the one big push late game, and then obviously the one to close things out. I love seeing poise like that. And it's funny because he is young, but you talk about how long he's been around in the competitive scene and how long he's been, you know, trying to get into competitions when he wasn't allowed. He really is wise beyond his years when you talk about how much experience he actually has. And I love to see the macro understanding and the patience coming through more, I feel like, in 2023 than we saw out of him in 2022. Very similar to Arden Toas, our most recent golden ticket winner.
Sure, and the maturity growth for both of those players is a real key factor, right? And you see not just maturity, but also the ability to play calm and not get nervous. If there's one word I would use for Adriel, it seems to be unflappable. He's been through it all at this stage, right? So at this point, what are you going to do that's going to make him get nervous? I would be very surprised to see, assuming he makes it to World Finals, that'll be the big question, is how does he play on stage? But in these online competitions, he just seems stone cold.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what Arden ran into last year, right? It felt like the lights of the stage and the crowd and the announcers and the other player right there. It felt like it really did kind of shake him a little bit. And again, you talked about the growth from both of them. Hopefully here in 2023, you know, if they both are at World Finals, hopefully Adriel doesn't have the same struggles that Arden did. And if Arden is there, I mean, obviously Arden's there again, hopefully he will not have the same struggles he had last year. And it's maturity does so much in experience for these players.
And now coming up, a newcomer to this King of the Hill competition for RoyaleMSTRS, Nadir, who is the first Algerian player I think I've seen in competitive, which is very exciting. And currently ranked in the top 200 for CRL, and does have a couple top 200 finishes overall in our ranked season. So certainly some talent here from a newcomer to our competitive scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's got a pretty good profile here when you look at what he's done, just like you said, you know, top 300 in, you know, once we changed over to UC, and like you said, a top 150 finish back in the day. Yeah, he's definitely put in some work. Very, very little achievements in terms of playing at the highest level. He showed up in the qualifier of CRL 2022, ended up in 96th place, but here he is, 2023, like you said, 193rd, so probably won't see him at World Finals, but maybe 2024 is his year.
You know, you never know. That's why we have the golden tickets here in 2023, because you can just put it together 1 month and find yourselves to Worlds. So I hope that Nadir does push hard, and maybe he'll put it all together 1 month and grab that golden opportunity. Well, either way,
I know, it's so crazy how quickly people forgot. I saw the thread going the other day, and it was just like, do you guys remember what you were complaining about in 2021? And how boring those last couple months of competition were when everything was locked up? The golden ticket had so much flair, so much fun, the fact that anyone can make it at any moment.
Well, right now, Nadir's worried about the guy right in front of him. He's worried about trying to get past Adriel, and this is certainly one of the more difficult outs he'll probably have. He's probably had in his whole entire Clash Royale career, and trying to find just any way to break through here. So far, can't get it done in a meaningful manner, as Adriel is continuing to play good defense and now setting up for what should be a pretty dangerous look.
Yeah, I really like what Adriel's done with kind of spreading his opponent thin with the double firecrackers in the right-hand lane. You saw there the fireball being held by Nadir, looking for the Evo firecracker. Adriel just doing a good job making his opponents play pretty uncomfortably over the last few games.
Yeah, we'll see how long he rides the Hog Riders, obviously making some adjustments to which Hog Rider deck he's going with, and we know that Adriel's a phenomenal Hog player, so we'll see next up with Sosa, assuming Adriel does hang on and win this game, if he makes any adjustments against a guy who might be his competition at World Finals.
And I really love what Adriel did. It's really small, Rich, but if you just look at this adjustment, like you said, his adjustment with his Hog deck, it matches up better against Evo RG, and that is what Nadir's battle log is just filled with. It is filled with Evo RG. And even though he gets a shot in here and Adriel is struggling, you look at, wow, he gets 3 shots in. I mean, that is a ton of trouble. Still might be able to make something happen here with the Hog EQ, or excuse me, the Hog Monk push, but a great fish boy here from Nadir. Basically what I was trying to get to is that the guards, plus the Ice Spirit, plus the Lob, plus the Bomb Tower, there's all so many great ways to control that Royal Giant. It was a pretty good deck selection here by Adriel, but he is struggling in triple.
He's just finding no way to block the Fisherman either. That Fisherman, that was multiple Hog attempts that just got nowhere. This Monk needs to get the knockback, and this Royal Giant, oh, but look at the left-hand side, Andrew. The left-hand side's a problem. Holding on, 24 seconds left.
So much attention and effort was spent on that right-hand lane to stop that Royal Giant. Even got the last second Bomb Tower, which kind of feels like the nail in the coffin there for Adriel.
And no way to block this Fisherman. 39 HP left on the left-hand side. A Hog has to get through if Adriel wants to hold on, but it's not gonna happen. Nadir.
Wow.
His first pinned tweet on Twitter is on X now, I guess we're supposed to call it. It's Twitter, Elon. It's Twitter.
It's Twitter.
His first pinned tweet is about how to play RG, and it looked like Adriel might have had the math worked out. Instead, he falls, and Nadir is our new king of the hill.
Yeah, I mean, you look at all of the great ways to kind of control the RG, control the Lumberjack, the Fish Boy, though, the Fish Boy. You kept saying it during the matchup, and I'm pretty sure Adriel kept thinking about it. How on earth do I control this, like, mini tank that's pulling all my units together? And there was no way to get to him, period. There's absolutely nothing you could do. And considering, like, what Nadir did with his quick cycle there with the Skellies and the E-Spirit, you can get that next Fish Boy back down right away. So really love it. It felt like Adriel had good answers drawn up with the deck choice, but Nadir's pinned tweet comes through.
Yeah, well, the hard part, and he never found an opportunity to do it. When you're playing against that Royal Giant, at some point, you need to figure out how to get the Fish Boy out of rhythm, or how to block the fish attempt. And we saw a really nice one just this I think at our last, was it our last CRL? No, it was Pandora at the Queso Cup. Did a really great job in the same situation of not blocking the Fisherman over and over again, and then finally in the penultimate moment, dropping the high skeletons in the middle to trap the Fisherman to let the Hog get through. We never saw Adriel get the opportunity to do that, and maybe it was partially because the Fisherman was being played a little bit low to avoid that. But also, he never took the swing to try to predict that and just get that breakthrough moment, or even maybe a log combo. And when your Hog can't connect in that matchup, you're not going to win on EQ cycle.
Yeah, and then the line being set high so you can never get like a guards plus Hog push there. And I think using the word of the day there for you was the opportunity to. I think you're correct. I think Nadir did a really good job making it so Adriel could just not get an advantage there with the cards that he had at his disposal. And that's a great recognition. I mean, that's why anytime you watch any pro and you're like, oh, I'm stuck in Arena 9, how can I get out of here? They'll all tell you the same thing. Pick one deck and just play that one deck. And that feels like Nadir knew that matchup inside and out.
And let's see if Nadir, it looks like he's going to something different. So not going to go Royal Giant back-to-back as our current number 3 in the hunt for World Finals, Sosa, a.k.a. Soki. Please stop doing this, guys. Just pick a name. Comes up next.
Hog right into that Inferno. Now we're seeing more of kind of what we expect, at least what I expected at the top of the day. More Hog Rider than Ram Rider.
Yeah, and we're going to see a ton of Hog Rider, and we're going to see, I think, a lot of that move there as well, especially with the Mighty Miner. We might see some with the Monk, but trying to predict the building play and bump around the building to get to the outside and connect on tower. That's we saw Morton do that in our last CRL weekend against Ta and get a big breakthrough to blow open a win in early rounds of CRL monthly finals for July. And it's definitely one of those ones where, especially if you play a half step low, you're trying to get extra bang for your buck, you can be susceptible to it.
Yeah, that normal building placement doesn't always work out with these body blocks and this density pushes, so I do like that that's kind of become part of the gameplay with Hog Rider, although it doesn't seem like Hog needed much help right now in the meta.
And of course, I know that in our YouTube chat, we are live on both YouTube and on Twitch, and have seen in our YouTube chat a lot of fans of Firkin and Aslan. So if you're one of those guys hanging around waiting for one of your 2 favorites, you can see that Firkin is up next in these matchups. So it's a joy to have you guys here as always, and it'd be fun to see what happens to the chat if we do end up getting a Firkin-Aslan match at some point. But it's going to require a lot of movement, because one of these guys has to start winning a bunch and stay king of the hill to make that win.
And there we go. The Evoed Mortar finally comes out, stops that Hog hit. Nice log there to make sure with the Musketeers' help. And Nadir doing a good job just kind of slow playing this in single elixir, just recognizing that his cycle, I think, is just a little bit heavier than his opponents. Doesn't want to get caught looking. He already had 1 Hog break through from Soki, but you can see 1858 to 2254, and it feels like Nadir should have an advantage to get into double elixir and triple, but we'll see. Soki, obviously, like you said, Rich, a very, very talented player, very high up on our CRO leaderboard.
1858 to 2034. So far, the Inferno Tower has been doing okay, but the support behind it has been allowing the breakthroughs, and giving up these hog shots is just a problem.
Yeah, really nice breakthrough there from Nadir, just kind of recognizing, all right, I just got to slow play, and I love seeing macro understanding from people like this. You know, some of our more inexperienced competitors looking at the big picture and getting paid off well.
Evo Mortar connects on the left-hand side, so giving some options to our current King of the Hill. Not that he's concerned as he continues to just chip away at the right-hand side. And Sosa's having to spend so much that he's not getting opportunities. Here we go. This is a chance. Can the Hog defend enough? And not even the Firecracker shot. Just complete perfection on the side of Nadir to hold on.
Yeah, and he's doing all things correct. He's getting the late log in instead of the Ice Spirit, so it's hitting both units. Obviously, the Mortar to bait out the EQ. The Musketeer is working towards the opposite lane, so he's not giving a lot of EQ value and still getting a slight counter push. So, you know, he's obviously played this matchup before. Gets the late Goblins down there after the first tick of the EQ, so they stay on the board. So Nadir knows this matchup well, but this is still not a safe out for Nadir.
No, it is not. The high mortar was nice, but the Evo Firecracker is going to put some damage onto that Musketeer. And this opens up. Oh, no. Nice job to get the Evo Firecracker. I was saying that was going to open up an opportunity there for Sosa, but take a look at this. Log does not do enough. Hog is on. EQ, Firecracker, no shot. And Nadir looks like he's going to hold on, barring a huge mistake.
Yeah, a bit of min-maxing there. He gets predicted on the Goblins, which is a really, really nice pre-log there by Soki. It was something that Nadir hadn't done over and over defensively, and luckily for Nadir, he had just enough of a lead to where it wasn't a factor, but Soki making it pretty close there at the end. Nadir staying high at our King of the Hill, and just a reminder to you guys that maybe weren't here for the previous months of King of the Hill, our most wins we've gotten, obviously from Mohammed Light, 13 wins in 1 day. So that's our number to beat. 13 wins, I think the highest number other than Mo was 7,
Yeah.
I think is what we got from Faust in our first month. So 7 is the first milestone, then 13 if you want to break records here, and obviously walk away with over, you know, $1,000 would be pretty nice for a Wednesday. Nadir, doing a good job.
I think that's the big mark, right? I think you can call it a complete. Any win you get, by the way, is, you know, anytime you get paid for winning a game of Clash Royale, I think that's just on its basis a win. And everyone here has already gotten $75 for qualifying, right? So that already feels phenomenal. But every win you stack, but I think that the mark in my mind, the had a good day mark is around 500, is around 5 wins. The had a great day mark is that 10 and up. Just that double digits makes you feel really like, oh, I kind of dominated these guys.
And a shout out to Lucas from our producer, who also got 7 wins last month. The greatest player to ever win back-to-back monthly finals without a coach.
Very true.
My favorite title, maybe in Clash Royale right now. And we are waiting, I believe, for King Elian. Hopefully we got a check-in from him. It sounds like he made it through qualifiers yesterday, but our producers are having trouble getting a hold of him today, which is, you know, not good news for him, but basically great news for everyone else if you're trying to get a little bit more money in your pocket. And also great news for us, because at least in this type of broadcast, man, with King of the Hill and the way it works, if he doesn't show up, no problem. We just keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, so I guess our next matchup, I'm not sure who it will be if we don't get King Elian in here, but it'll be someone pretty darn good, because so far we've had some great competition. And I gotta say that Nadir playing as well as he is with the level of players he's around has got to feel great for him. And here we go. It is Firkin up next. So we'll see if Elian's able to get in the mix. But right now, Nadir has to be feeling really good about what he's done so far.
Yeah, I mean, took the words right out of my mouth. When you talk about the competition that he's been going up against and the way that he's been playing the poise, and now seeing different decks, right? I wasn't sure after game 1 if it was just going to be like an RG1 trick, but he's shown now that he can hang with the best. So love what we're seeing, love the change in decks, and definitely been leaning, though, on that Monk. Monk showing up so much today, man. It feels like maybe a changing of the tides, at least in terms of champions. We're seeing more and more Monk, AQ, and Golden Knight these days.
Fascinating choice to go with Loon, and unfortunate situation for Nadir to go Loon into an Inferno Tower deck. So we'll see if he can find some way to break past it. But it's gonna be difficult, although this is a nice little bit of chip damage to get himself back in the game. But man, Ice Spirit, Inferno Tower, and probably something to attack air, gonna make things a challenge for Nadir.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing that makes this super tough, man, is even though he can get to the 3-card cycle, which is what you really rely on with these minor loon decks late, is just that very, very fast cycle. Obviously, a champion's going to help it. But the thing is, his opponent has got an Ice Spirit and an Inferno and a champion as well to keep up with that cycle. So technically, if Firkin just keeps and maintains his cycle with Nadir's, he should be able to just hog here and there and then spell cycle win this game. So we'll see if that's the battle plan.
And not going to spend more here as Firkin, knowing that Nadir's Monk is trying to set up for the next big push. So let's see if Nadir does actually put something big together, or just kind of let expenditures happen and wait for a more opportune moment.
So Evo, or not Evo, but Firecracker comes out, Monk pops its ability, Firecracker goes to the miner there, so arrows come out to take care of that.
Oh,
and
great.
This Hog not going to get a hit with that last-second snowball.
But it did the important thing for Firkin, which is continue to force Nadir to play from behind on Elixir, right? And that's, we're talking about some of those smarter plays. And I think that when we talk about maturity and growth, knowing that not every push is about damage is a big one, and you're seeing that from Firkin.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, it feels like all Firkin has to do, if he's recognized it, is just keep up pressure, keep up spell cycles, and stay on the same cycle as his opponent. So far, doing a really, really good job of that. Miner should go to the Inferno this time, does go to the Inferno, at least holds attention. Evo and Firecracker comes down, Ice Spirit back in cycle, and that's just the name of the game, man. It should be pretty much rinse and repeat. It's really what it comes down to now is Nadir having to come up with something new, I think.
Yeah, we might see Nadir go with like a double Loon push at some point, right? Get the Loon in the back corner, and you see him sort of getting a Phoenix set up late. But get the first Loon in the back corner, get a Monk in front of it, cycle back around to a second Loon, and try to find a breakthrough that way. You've already seen him start to really try to make some moves with his Miner, So we'll see if he finds out. It's something tricky as we get into the final 90.
So it's Nadir's turn to innovate here as he's trying to hang on. Firkin getting a little bit more spell cycle in. It's only a few hundred HP, and there we go, Rich. I mean, again, this is what I like about what Nadir's doing. He's changing up his decks, and he's also changing up his playstyle when things are working, when they're not working, not being too predictable, and then obviously in a situation like this, just trying to make anything happen.
Yeah, he doesn't need to snowball that. He might arrow snowball here, and then he does.
Wow,
brilliant.
That's huge.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful, and gets that way down. That might be in spell range after this, and it will be Nadir. Puts together a perfect sequence to break through and get the win over Firkin.
I'm so impressed. I mean, he did exactly what he needed to do. And he did it by the way that you and I were doing it, which was really cool. You and I were kind of talking through the thought process of like, well, what do you do? Well, what's he doing? Well, he's keeping up with my cycle every single time. He's got an Inferno plus a Firecracker, and then he's got that second Ice Spirit, all right? He's got 2 Ice Spirits every single time. So maybe what do we do? Maybe we'll start building a balloon push from the back. We'll see what, and it literally absolutely perfect. Came together, the double spell on top, the Firecracker, mwah. Chef's kiss. I'm going to steal your moment there from that because I know that you love that. And it was what you called. You're like, maybe he needs to double loon, and that's exactly what worked.
Well, the big thing there, and I don't think we have replay today, but if we did, it was the Ice Spirit that was picked up by the Miner that went to the inside there, and that meant that the Ice Spirit was no longer able to help with defending that Inferno Tower as it had earlier to burn those loons down. So you had a situation where he couldn't cycle to another Inferno Tower. The Ice Spirit now was made into a non-factor, and Nadir just executing perfectly. And again, he keeps on not just performing well, but performing well against some of the best competition that he's faced in competitive gameplay. I know this is best of one. We're not talking about dual mode. We're not talking about trying to put all those pieces together, but the gameplay here is solid for him.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what he's come out with 3 games in a row now. He goes RG, he goes Comfort in game number 1. He beats Adriel with an Ice Spirit, Guards, Log, Bomb Tower deck, right? Pretty impressive, had Monk in there. Then he goes game number 2, he goes to Evoed Mortar, right? First person to use Evoed Mortar today, finds success with it in a Hog EQ, not mirror matchup, but, you know, obviously Hog EQ in both hands. And then you go to his next deck where he's not even using an Evoed card. Yeah. So I always love being impressed by people like this, and then the people he's beaten along the way are heavy hitters in CRL, in Firkin, Sosa/Soki, and Adriel. So yeah, I mean, color me impressed, man. I love to see it.
And I do see our next match is meant to be Nadir against the King Elian, so we're just taking a moment to see if Elian has finally checked in, and if not, we'll move on past him to our next player. Hey, we got him! So Elian was potentially going to throw money down the drain, and instead put a stopper in that, and now has a chance to unseat our current very successful king.
Cutting it very, very close is King Elian, who joined just during the last game. Maybe just was busy watching the broadcast. I would hope that's what he was doing.
Yeah, almost assuredly what he was doing, going, I cannot pull my eyes away from these two. And Elian, certainly the odd man out from this group, has not participated in CRL at all, has 0 CRL points.
Yeah. Does
have a top 300 finish in our ranked system. Overall.
And currently at 2942, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, 2942 in ranked is nice. So definitely has some skills. For sure you gotta have some to get to this stage, but if we're doing our power rankings so far, on the bottom of it, let's see if he can upset some people and get some more money.
Yeah, definitely. It's always fun to see kind of these barren profiles, if you will, and then see them show up today. And Nadir is one of those guys who maybe not as fresh of a profile as King Elian's, but has definitely proven himself over the last 3 games.
And here we go, Royal Giant versus Royal Giant. So we've moved away for the moment from the hog meta into the Royal Giant phase of our day.
And there we go. Instantly Evoed RG opposite lane. Now Evoed RG going for a tower trade here, but Nadir should have a Fisherman. There we go, because Fisherman out of cycle for King Elian.
And Fisherman not doing a whole lot for either one of these two. Lumberjack finally gets in the conversation for Nadir. and King Elian will come out on top of that, but you know, it feels like the third fight in a Keanu Reeves movie. Everyone leaves bloody.
403 to 538, and King Elian just goes right back on the offensive. I don't actually know if I like this play. I don't know if he needed to be this aggressive at the moment, because as you can see, look at the counter push his opponent's building up. Doesn't get the tower out of it, definitely within spell range, but I don't know, just felt a little over-aggressive.
Well, let's see how he can protect. He knows he's not against the Evo'd Royal Giant. Does give up one shot, so both guys in danger. We don't know Nadir's spell situation, whether he's going to require... Oh, and he misses one of the two Phoenixes, yeah. So Elian going to, I guess, defend this out, but that's going to be a problem. Evo to RG into his strong side.
And no spell, no fireball coming out here for King Elian, and one huge mistake there. He knows. He goes, I missed the fireball, don't have the fireball to take the tower. Two Phoenixes on my right-hand tower, and then Nadir recognizing a great spot, just going, okay, I know what to do in this situation when someone overspends with this RG deck, and that's just go right at the bridge with Lumberjack. GG, well played.
I am thoroughly stunned. I thought that when that right-hand tower was in so much difficult position, you know your opponent, that right-hand tower was already in fireball range. You know your opponent can kill that right-hand tower and will kill that right-hand tower. Just secure your tower and move on into sudden death overtime. What are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. You got to look at the big picture there and know tower's going to fall no matter what. The worst thing you could do is overspend, and if he's going to spend another Phoenix there, great. Let him spend that extra elixir to have that tower. You focus on the other lane, and now you don't have to just fireball the left-hand tower. You can actually build a real push if you want to that is much more formidable and much more advantageous for you than just spelling out a tower. So maybe showing up a little bit late to class was not the best way for Elian to go, but remember, it's King of the Hill. He's got a couple more opportunities, so maybe that kind of woke him up a little bit. It always sucks to miss a spell, but this wasn't just missing a spell, Rich.
And Shah Jalani giving us a little correction in the YouTube chat. I think it's, and if, I'm going to try a couple pronunciations. Is it Nadir as opposed to Nadir? Nadir, maybe? So maybe it's Nadir. We'll get a confirmation, but you know, they didn't send us pronunciation guides for these guys, so we're just going from what the letters look like. But hopefully it's Nadir, and we've now gotten it sorted out. And I want to get it. We need to get it right, because this is our current dominant King of the Hill.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking through the chat. I'm like, did anyone phonetically type it out? No, they just like to tell us when we mispronounce things.
N-A-A-D-I-R versus N-A-D-E-E-R. So that makes me think it's Nadir, but
Nadir,
as opposed to, I don't know. That's what we'll go with for now, and we'll see if we get an update on our pronunciation. I do appreciate the help there, Shai, who's a regular viewer, and getting us a little dialed in. But speaking of dialed in, Nadir right now totally dialed in and stacking more and more on a 4-win streak, $400, which if you were talking about who might do that, you might have thought Vitor, might have thought Adriel, might have thought Sam. Yeah. Who was picking Nadir? Well, he was, and right now doing great.
Yeah, and you look at his prize money won in CRL, it's not listed, right? So here we go. Starting to build that bank from Clash. Love doing it here at Royale Masters. Every single month we do this competition. Every single month there's always a surprise standout, and there's always a ton of heavy hitters. And this month it seems to be Nadir, at least for right now. Nadir. Vitor and Aslan have been sitting back for a very, very long time. We're finally going to get back around. Obviously, we're in match 7 of 24, so a couple more before we take our very first break. But Vitor coming back out. We'll see if he can bounce back. A guy that, like, this year in 2023, I thought I would just see more of him, Rich. I mean, I know that he's barely outside of that top 7. You know, when you take out those 5 that have already qualified, I think he actually might be in it then. He might be at the very end, but it's just, I don't know. It seems like this year has been a tough one, and it just shows how steep the competition is at the highest level.
It's really hard, and yeah, Vitor currently is 4 spots out of that top 7. So nipping at the heels, and he's got the points where he most certainly could make that push. Currently at 265 points, Rainbow, who holds that number 7 spot, at 285. So 20 points behind Rainbow, and you expect Vitor to have at least one fairly good month. So I feel pretty solid about Vitor's chances. But again, you just got to put together one good month and hope the guys above you aren't doing the same thing.
So our first stop and stare of the day here could be Royal Giant, could be Lava for the first time. I would love to see some Lava Evo'd Barbs. We did see last month that, you know, people just were not preparing for a battle in the skies because so much of it was just on the ground with Hog Rider and Royal Giant that sometimes Lava was actually the way to go, but have not seen that big tanky unit up in the skies yet today.
Well, this is an interesting wait here. I got to assume that no one's playing bait, or no one's playing cycle, or if someone is playing cycle, that they just have a really rough starting hand and don't want to spend and then suddenly find themselves blown out on the other side right at the bridge. So we'll see. This is possible. No, we haven't seen Lava yet, Andrew, but you talk about it. This is one of those situations where maybe as soon as we hit double, we see a Lava Hound in the corner.
And now there's like 4 different pronunciations in a row of Nadir, Nadir, Nutter. I don't know. Now we just need to talk to him. We gonna play? I mean, we're trying here.
And 10 seconds until double. So we'll see if someone
drop at 5. No.
Yeah, no. And there you go. Lava behind the clock.
Been on point today, Rich.
I'm casting way too much Clash Royale right now. It's just what's happening.
I mean, you think this is the first time we're going to see Lava, and here we go, and Vitor just going right to RG, just didn't like his starting hand.
And maybe once Vitor realized that his opponent wasn't going, he decided, hey, not only do I not like my starting hand, but I don't like my starting hand with what I suspect I'm up against.
So second Phoenix comes down here, going to be nice defense. Flying Machine not in range of the tower, so should actually be enough here to take care of this Phoenix. No.
Barbs, but not evolved. So interesting situation here from Nadir as he's now suddenly giving up a ton of damage and decides to Lava on top of that Royal Giant and has a pretty big push coming down the lane. What can Vitor do here?
I mean, I think he's doing the correct thing and maybe just going for a tower trade. Didn't feel like he has a lot of defensive options here. He just wants to get this tower off the board, and he beats him out for it. And Vitor doing a good job just going, all right, you're going to give me the opportunity. We're going to go for it.
Yeah, great. I mean, great call there. Just get right under. Know that you can break. They don't have any way to stop you, right? That Royal Giant is going to get to tower. So break through, reset, get the damage. He got enough on the first sequence, and man, that matchup without the Evolved Barbarians does seem like a pretty big problem.
And what's really cool, yeah, I mean, definitely you should have had the Evo'd Barbs in there. I'm not sure. Didn't Vitor also not play the Evo'd Firecracker in his first game? Isn't that what happened?
Yeah, and then, yeah, he didn't play.
Yeah, he did not play the Evo'd Firecracker against Aslan, and then we go to this game, and he plays the Evo'd RG to make sure, but we don't see anything Evo'd on the side of Nadir. So very interesting here when we're seeing random, cards not being evolved. It does feel like it's always an oversight. It doesn't ever feel like you said it's a statement. But one thing that I want to talk about is the E-Spirit, right? I mean, not only did you talk about, Rich, there's no way to stop that RG, but that E-Spirit with the chain when you're playing against Lava, with the way that units are spread out with a Lava Hound deck, there's always going to be a way to get to the Inferno, which was a really, really great recognition by Vitor, which meant at the very end there, he was willing to just go, all right, I'll just go RG at the bridge because you can drop every unit you have and one E-Spirit will make sure my RG gets at least 2 shots. And I love that. I love that a card, like a 1 elixir card like the E-Spirit, probably the least used spirit these days. Well, maybe second most used now. I'd say Heal Spirit's probably the least, and now I guess Fire Spirit's dropped down. But to see that E-Spirit put in the work that it did, absolutely amazing. Inferno Dragon had nothing for that RG.
That was brutal. Let's go take a look at the leaderboard as it currently stands through what we've played so far. And I see other person saying it's Nadir. So, you know what? We'll get a confirmation maybe from him and see how he says we should pronounce it. But right now, either way, our leader, 4 wins, 475 in the pocket, 2 for Adriel and Vitor and Aslan, both with 1 each, putting down 175. And we do have our good friend and CRL co-caster, Juicy J, in the chat on YouTube saying, quote, Vitor has no business winning that matchup. And I gotta wonder if it's purely just the matchup situation. I mean, Obviously, there were some challenges there with the Barbarian cycled behind the King Tower and not available for the Royal Giant, but also not having evoed Barbarians. Did that make an impact?
Yeah, I mean, you should be able to just drop the barbs on top of that RG, and then the fireball, if it does come out, then the fireball is not available for the skeleton dragons, the flying machine, everything else. I mean, Juicy's not wrong. The only unit that he had was the Phoenix to take care of everything in the sky. So I agree that you should not have won that matchup. On paper, that matchup is, I mean, technically 50-50, but I'll go with what Juicy says because he knows these probably a little bit better than we do. We're a third of the way through our day. A lot more action coming your way here at Royale Masters King of the Hill edition. Do not move a muscle. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to Royale Masters, the home of King of the Hill, where a whole bunch of players all fight for pieces of our $30,000 prize pool by trying to stay in charge. And right now, Andrew, in charge, it's one of our longtime veterans, Vitor.
Yeah, well, Vitor in control of the hill right now, but Nadir in control of that prize purse, and we do have confirmation from Nadir that is how to pronounce his name, at least how he says to pronounce his name. So at least for this broadcast and for this player moving forward, that is how it's going to be stated. But he's had a really, really good showing today, playing a lot of different decks. That last matchup there, as Juicy, our co-caster and Serial called, probably should have won, was up in the air with Lava, only had Phoenix to worry about in Fireball, but Vitor played very, very well and kind of put a little stop to Nadir's run of terror. And now it's back to the way we started our day, except for Vitor's at the top, Aslan at the bottom. we'll see if Vitor can have a different fortune here in their second meeting of our day.
You know, sometimes that full send comes down and you're just in the way of the avalanche. And that happened. And now we have Vitor on top against Aslan. And let's look at the lineup that happens. No matter what, we're going to get such a banger of lineups because the winner of this faces Samwell, faces Adriel, faces Soki, faces Firkin. Ah, it's so fun.
Yeah, I know. And then there's always the X factor, and King Elian feels like the biggest underdog on the day, but we've had underdogs in past here at Royale Masters King of the Hill Edition show up and put in some pretty good work. I mean, so we'll see if that's going to be the way that King Elian wants to go. Only had one showing yet so far, but yeah, a lot of heavy hitters here.
And you saw the King Tower activation that Vitor was going for, and I don't know if it's that he got the angle slightly wrong, or if the Mighty Miner didn't let the miner's attention divert to the King Tower and it pulled it back over. Either way, a nice idea and attempt from Vitor, didn't quite pull it off though.
Nice Ice Spirit there to help take care of the Mighty Miner. Those Skellies.
Now you see this time Aslan playing it much safer, putting that one in the #1 spot for some chip damage.
So a fun little kind of mirror look here. Obviously, bats and minions, a bit of a change. And, you know, minions were... this deck that Vitor was running, there was a version of this deck before the Evos kind of just dominated everything that was really, really strong. Those minions become really tough to deal with because you're not sure where to use your big spell or your small spell, right? That poison feels like it's more important to be on top of the Musketeer, but the amount of damage those minions can put in is insane.
It is interesting, right, to make that sacrifice for the cycle in order for just a little bit more attention and care having to be paid to it. Adding in the snowball just to let you contend with your opponent's bats, and Vitor has some interesting options, but so far it's all going the way of Aslan.
Musketeer taking out that Evoed Mortar. Evoed Mortar still really, really strong. Probably the third strongest, I'd say. Or maybe fourth, I don't know. It's tough. I think Evoed Mortar and Evoed Barbs are pretty close, but I think that Evoed Barbs decks are probably a little bit more dominant.
It depends on who you ask, right? And they will vehemently just tell you the Evoed Barbs are the strongest. You know, Evoed Mortar's the strongest, and it's whatever counters their deck the best is apparently the strongest one. You know, the one risk that we're seeing, and we've seen it, we're not seeing it on this cycle, but we saw on the last one for Vitor in this matchup with the minions, is the two most popular champions right now are Mighty Miner and the Monk, and both of those pretty easily with their ability counter those minions. So we've seen some of the results of that already, and I'm curious to see if that continues to be a problem for him trying to break through.
Wow, Aslan's Musketeer on that right-hand tower. It feels like Vitor is spending so much to just try to get a lick of damage in and then still not defending adequately in that right-hand lane. 538 now, the lowest tower on the board. But Evoed Mortar can turn things around very quickly, while this one's already down to about a third of its HP.
And a little mistake here out of Aslan. It's going to get a lot of damage for the minions as he leaves one on the table. And now, just like that, we're going to have this almost tied up as we go into triple elixir.
Yeah, and especially the logging their high on the Musketeer instead of logging low and hitting the Muskie and the Goblin. So Goblin on the tower getting tanked for by the Muskie. Nice minor poison here by Aslan, recognizing that the minions were the best response there. And now Vitor kind of going into panic mode, knowing he needs to end this, he needs to end it now. Great pre-log there to get rid of the Ice Spear. Aslan winning that foot race.
Yeah, really, really nice stuff from Aslan. Got it done, and it just felt like the minions, that 3 elixir, put him a little bit behind. There was a mistake on Aslan's part, right? And that's the thing that kept it close. Not that it worked out really well for Vitor, but that Aslan left that one devastating minion on the board. It just felt like I think that probably Vitor was looking for a different matchup than the near mirror.
Yeah, and you know, those minions, it was interesting because they were kind of the deciding factor in terms of Vitor actually getting damage in, but also maybe were the hindrance for him being able to keep up with that game, as he was just behind by a bit. And then obviously Aslan making some really, really nice plays there. Love the stuff at the end with his minor play. I mean, obviously, you know me, I'm a huge mortar fan. I love the Evoed mortar. I love how quickly Vitor was able to turn that game around with just one musketeer coming across the bridge and that one goblin being on tower, not really knowing where to log. I mean, I think Aslan probably did the correct thing and logs the musketeer and then deals with the goblin, because if you try to log both and you don't get the musketeer, then that muskie's on your tower. But either way, Aslan 2 for 0 against Vitor on the day.
Yeah, it's a really nice one for him, and now he goes from one world finalist, former world finalist, to another former world finalist in Samuel Basodo, who steps back in after a disappointing outing in his first appearance.
I know, it's so interesting that we've gone from just like world finalist to world finalist to world finalist, when it really does feel like Aslan is out of that conversation. Even though he was there last year, it was just he was one of our players that had to be remote and was out very early on, getting 16th place. But Aslan, a world finalist, and just last year was a world finalist. So we'll see if he can make that happen again this year. Probably going to need some pretty incredible things to happen with points, and most likely a golden ticket is his way to go.
And here we go, Hog Mortar versus Hog Inferno. We've already seen this once today. Let's see if it goes the same way here in the rerun. Although I do believe it was the Monk previously in the Inferno deck.
Yeah, and Sam just going with the two most popular fast cycle decks in the game. I think the first one was the Drill, and then here in game 2 just goes to Hog EQ.
Well, Sam certainly is known as a cycle player, as a lot of the guys who came up during his era, including his frenemy in Lucas, all known as big cycle players, Hog players in their early days.
Yeah, one deck that we haven't seen at all today is the one that Mo Light made pretty popular, which is that 2.3 Minor Wall Breakers deck. But it makes sense. I mean, 2.3 cycle at a high level does not leave a lot of room for error, and pretty much the only people that confidently can dominate that is Muhammad Light.
And easily controls the Evoed Mortar, does Samwell. And we'll see. I mean, I'm very curious to see how involved the Evoed Mortar can get here. Easy King Tower activation.
Yeah, well, the Evoed Mortar is really interesting because using it as a pressure play for Aslan is actually not a bad idea. When you look at the ways that Sam has to control the Mortar, he can kind of distract it with the Skellies and the Ice Spirit, but I think the best way to go is to get that Mighty Miner down on the board and kind of kite it around and then get damage on it. So, I don't know, it feels like that Mortar could be a bit of an annoying card. But if he saves, I mean, it feels like right now he's saving the regular mortar to defend and then the Evoed mortar for pressure, and I'm not sure if that's going to work out. He might need to just start using the other mortar for pressure as well, and then defend those hogs without mortars.
Well, Hog in with some earthquake damage and trying to play a little bit of catch up right now is Sam, and at the moment, sorry, is Aslan. At the moment, it's been all Sam who is the first under 2,000 on that right-hand side. Hog doesn't get it, and now Aslan pressures opposite direction, but this song continues to be stuck on the same verse.
And this time a log has to come out as well for Basodo, so a little bit of information there to gather for Aslan, recognizing, all right, it's got a little bit better, but Evoed Firecracker right at the bridge. Mortar does turn the Hog around, but that Mortar will also give splash damage, and that is one of the more frustrating things about Mortar in general right now in the meta is, I think if you play it, though, at the bridge, right at the bridge, I can't remember if it splashes there, because most of us, we all play the Mortar one tile down from the bridge, gives you more time to respond, that's the natural place for it. I can't remember if you play it right at the bridge if the Firecracker splash doesn't come through.
Oh, and look at this play. Instead of, even if it only gets a little bit of damage, it forces out a lot of extra elixir and maybe messes with the cycle of Samwell, as that Hog did sneak around the Monk. We talked about that earlier, Andrew, the use trying to sneak past the building with that bump. And that working out even one time does open things up, but still about a 500 HP difference to make up right now for Aslan.
And it's just non-stop Hogs of flying. Now we see the Mortar going down up high again. Gonna get one shot on that Firecracker, but every single time the Earthquake can get splash damage on. So going to be very tough here for Aslan, as he's just kind of playing in the same lane, and he doesn't want to change lanes at this point because Sam can just ignore it. So now he's kind of just hoping for a miracle.
This was a good sequence, though, for Aslan. And now he's putting a lot of decision-making onto Samwell with the high Evo mortar. Aslan should have another Hog and cycle. There we go. Hog
Mortar
right
on tower.
Mortar on tower.
That should actually do it, Rich.
Oh, boy.
That should do it.
Aslan,
Wow.
the cycle gets it done, and what a great pressure play at the exact needed moment to steal that victory and remain on top of the hill.
I mean, that's exactly what I was talking about earlier on, because I've been there before, is how do you start to control those mortars when that's the deck that you're playing? It becomes really difficult late game if you keep using those mortars as pressure. If you only use your Evo mortar as pressure, it's not going to work, but he started using the regular mortar as high pressure, and while it wasn't really creating pressure, it was baiting out those EQs every single time. And finally, when you saw Sam have to play that double Inferno Tower as defense, it felt like Aslan just had a little bit more firepower because of the elixir expenditure from Basodo. It felt like he was spending way too much there. And that Evo Mortar, that HP is no joke.
And the second Inferno Tower, and it was maybe, and I don't know if there's a different placement that makes any sense. That second Inferno Tower, the first one wasn't down yet. So he placed it right at the bridge where it's in complete distraction mode, not able to actually do what it wants. I don't know if a low Inferno, just to confirm you pick up the Hog, would have been right. Maybe that would have made some more danger from the Musketeer, from the Mortar, things like that. Either way, the Monk being able to open up lanes for that Hog Rider, open up opportunities for it, ended up being phenomenal. And now Aslan, King of the Hill, and I know a lot of those fans out there really hoping that he can get through Adriel and Soki Sosa and set up a Turkish delight, if you will.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think more, because that Inferno, it could have been played off to the right because he's not going up against Evoed Firecracker, but either way, Aslan doing a really great job there at the end. And now we see a real change up here from Adriel, going with, I think, Recruits. Is that correct? Maybe Recruits Hogs?
Maybe. I don't know if Recruits are in this. It's certainly possible. Yeah, you might be right for the Recruits. I've seen this a bunch. I'm just trying to remember if Recruits end up. I think there might be a version of it. I don't know if that's this one.
Yeah, I think there's also another version with Mirror. But we shall see what Adriel wants to rock. Nice to see something a bit different. And there we go. I was going to say, it has to be Evoed Barbs. I feel like Adriel's not going to play Evoed Skellies, and I feel like he's also not going to not play an Evoed cards. So Evoed Barbs, still very, very strong. You know, like you and I were talking about earlier. You know, just depends on who you talk to on which one is stronger.
And Miner with the... We're back to the minions, this time in a Miner Wall Breakers.
I gotta admit, Goblin Cage is still one of my absolute favorite cards in the game. It's a little underutilized. Feels like he's getting a little bit more popularity these days because he is pretty good against Royal Giant. But it's just been nice to see.
And Evo Firecracker distracted by what a nice little distraction and push play. And most importantly for Adriel is that's going to get the Evo Firecracker out, but also maintain that flying machine a little bit longer, which is going to be a big problem for Aslan.
Yeah, I mean, that was the best play for Aslan to make, and I love that Adriel gave him the respect that he was going to play it, and gets the prediction there with the Royal Hogs. So we see the win conditions out in both directions here as Adriel is down by just a hair.
And again, this flying machine a problem. I don't know what Aslan's answer is going to be, right? Clearly, it appears that there is no, big spell to deal with it. So what is Aslan's plan to be for this flying machine as it continues to be an absolute nuisance?
Yeah, misses the pickup there, and honestly, I think what he has to do is bait out the arrows if he can, which is going to be tough because the arrows might be saved for the regular Firecracker or the minions, and then the Fireball obviously for the Evoed. But I think it's really just trying to get those arrows off the board and then find space for your minions to deal with that flying machine.
The arrows, Fireball, just giving so many options to deal with the Firecracker as well in both forms. 90 seconds left, and I like that Adriel's continuing to just make this a split situation, and I think he was concerned about something like that, the Mega Knight coming down. Smart play here, Adriel with a good read.
There we go, next Barb surrounding it on top of this MK, but the Goblins behind plus the Firecracker. Aslan was expecting it, which makes sense. I mean, it really is the best pull there to get on top of that MK. Don't love these wall breakers, though. Sent right into no man's land.
Yeah, I didn't like the arrows either that fell a little bit short here, and both guys maybe trying to push a bit extra as we get here in the triple Evo Barb split. Will not get to those, not get to that minor.
And those Evo Barbs, yeah, a little bit low. Wallbreaker's still going to get a connection there as that Goblin Cage that's taken off the board, but a massive counter push here on the left-hand side. MK, though, can stop everything in its tracks. Now you got to worry about the right. Evo Barbs behind, Firecracker down low.
Oh, my word.
Wow, look at that cleanup from that Firecracker, man. That was brutal.
It's like an ICBM she just carries around on her shoulder. It's absolutely insane that one 3 elixir troop can take care of 2 flying machines. I think there were some Zappies, some Pigs. Adriel might have actually been on the field at the same time as the rest of those troops, and the Firecracker still gets it done.
Yeah, I mean, this was just kind of a fascinating matchup in both directions. You talk about the fact that there's the MK there, and then you think about the arrows and the fireball being at Adriel's disposal, but still never knowing where to use them and never really having the correct option available, because a regular Firecracker still needs to be arrowed, right? So then all of a sudden, what do you do with the minions? Well, they need to be taken care of, or if you just completely ignore them, they're going to do such an insane amount of damage. And then you saw the only chance, really the only chance that Adriel had to steal that game. There's a Mega Knight in one lane, and then you have the Evoed Firecracker in the other, and that Evoed Firecracker, there's no Fireball available. So that's really what Adriel had to do was, I think all he needed to lock onto was that I need to have my my Fireball available for the Evoed Firecracker. That's the one thing that must happen. The rest of the spells can do whatever they want on whatever unit they want.
Yeah, I mean, that was, with how much was there on the right, I think there were some Evoed Barbs and some 2 flying machines. There was so much there. If there's a Fireball in hand, that's game over. Adriel's on top now. But there isn't. But there isn't. And that Evo Firecracker just, I mean, the splash, the spread, the sizzle, the crackle, whatever the crackle. Ooh, the crackle. Yeah, the crackle. Just getting all over everything. I was just watching that going, is this really going to happen right now? And it did.
It was like 12 elixirs worth of Evoed cards in there as well, and there was just absolutely nothing to do. It was insane the way that it stopped. And you know what? You got to give credit to Aslan as well. I mean, it wasn't just the Evoed Firecracker. I really love that play when he had the MK crossing the bridge earlier on. He knew the Barbs were going to surround it. He sent in Goblins right behind and a Firecracker way deep. That kind of 3-layered offense to take out your opponent's best defensive response, you got to give credit for that. But then the other part of it is just like, Evo Firecracker broken, man. That was nuts.
Yeah, that was absolutely wild. And look, there are more Evos coming, which I think that's going to be one of the big things that over time, as the pace of Evo, as more Evos enter the meta, it should balance out some of this stuff. Obviously, there's going to be some balance changes coming to the Firecracker sometime soon as well. But man, for the moment, this is just up there, and I don't know where it ranks in the overall list of broken cards, right? Because you had the monk,
the witch,
the witch executioner meta, you had the night witch meta, you had the original recruits, which were insane. You had the.
Do you remember the P.E.K.K.A. that hit across the bridge moment? That was fun.
Yeah, the Mr. Stretch P.E.K.K.A. Right, that was crazy.
Yeah.
And then also on top, you had the Phoenix, which was just insane. And I say arguably more annoying because the sound of like 7 Phoenixes on the board.
Yes.
It's like nails on a chalkboard. But I do think that this Evo Firecracker might be up in the top 5 in terms of all-time broken cards.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we were talking about earlier in the ability to steal a game in the final moments when you've played perfectly for 4.5 minutes, one Firecracker can make you lose a game. I think that is where the frustration really comes in.
And look, it's not like a mistake against a card can't cost you the game at the end after 5 minutes of perfect play. We know that's part of Clash Royale. But it's how far from behind you can come how quickly with this Evo'd Firecracker.
Yeah.
Just the level of devastation that 3 Elixir can suddenly bring.
Exactly. I was just going to say the 3 Elixir part of it is absolutely insane too, because you look at other 3 Elixir cards that can kind of like win games for you, and there aren't really. There's like Goblin Barrel, but that Goblin Barrel is not one of the best defensive cards in the game, you know? So yeah, the conversation with Firecracker can kind of go on forever.
Sure.
As this Evo'd RG sets up an Evo'd Firecracker, Fireball comes out immediately, Hog Rider distracted by the Mighty Miner.
Nice work for getting the Fisherman out of the way. Let's see how the cycle works for Aslan as we get deeper into it. As long as Aslan doesn't give up too much more damage before we get into get the triple elixir, he has a good shot still of doing the double RG push and breaking through. It's not going to be easy. And here he goes, setting up the Evo to RG into the weak side.
Yeah, I mean, you see that, like, the Fish Boy has just not been able to do what Aslan wants, so I think he's going like, all right, if I can't beat him, I need to join them, and look at that. Monk push, Evo to RG on the tower, very, very healthy, nothing there, and Aslan is spending everything he has up high. Fireball ready for that Firecracker. Fish Boy behind Rich. This is devastating.
And it stayed out of the Inferno Tower range. That's so crazy. I wish we had a replay. I could go back to what actually happened, because somehow that Evo to RG just inched outside of the Inferno Tower range and sat there shooting for what to Soki must have seemed like forever.
Yeah, I actually have the broadcast pulled up, so maybe I can try and kind of pull it back. And it was the Monk's ability, and it sounds like we actually have a replay as well, so I'm just going to shut up. We can watch the rest of this game. We'll check it out on replay, but once again, that body push doing enough, and Aslan's Rich has gone on a heater here in the second leg of our King of the Hill Royale Masters version today here in July.
And he is setting up the match I know that a lot of our chat on YouTube wants to see.
Yep.
The Aslan Firkin matchup. That is super fun and super exciting to see. But man, yeah, but I think we do have a replay available for that moment. Well, I think we might get that here in just a second. But, you know, Nate, I see Nate.
4 in a row for our boy.
4 in a row. Nice work. I see Nate in the chat saying bad placement of the tower. The tower placement wasn't out of the norm. And I think we're going to see, you mentioned it, I think it's going to be that the Monk plants his feet. The RG can't push a planted feet Monk. So the RG pushes just outside.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that you and I were talking about at the top of the day because of what we talked about a few weeks ago for CRL, right? Which is that body block, that push has become such a real factor, whether it's RG or whether it's Monk. The regular placement on buildings isn't always the way to go, because you see, the RG's on the inside, right? It's on the inside, so that placement always makes sense. You know, even normal RGs, if it's working down the center of the lane, sometimes you want to be careful, but that's working down the right side of that line, so that placement makes sense. But then you get the Monk in front with the ability popped, Rich, just like you said, you're not going to move that Monk, so what does the RG do? He goes around it, he goes to the left, and he gets the game.
It just, you know what it was? It just wasn't a super safe placement, right? It was a slightly risky placement because you're trying not to give too much value to the fireball, maybe. You're trying to get the troops to separate a little bit more. Maybe get all the troops behind the RG to stay further behind. Just it was kind of a, you know, it's one of those ones where it's like, hey, it's a risky placement, and it's not easy. I mean, we've seen this match play out how many times? It's not a 1000% easy to get that sequencing perfect to make sure the RG pushes to the outside of the Monk. Maybe we'll start seeing it more, but it's not a guaranteed move.
Yeah, and I was going to say a big shout out here to Nate also. I mean, yes, you did say bad placement in the tower, which I don't completely agree with, but you are correct. It is not the place it should be at this moment. You should always be playing to the safe spot, like Rich said. And then the second thing that Nate said is that log, the log of who just lost? Why am I having a brain fart? The log of Soki, there we go.
There we go, yeah.
Pushes the RG one tile to the left, which stops the sizzle of the Inferno. So not only was the Inferno locked on for a second, Soki actually pushes it off, then the Monk body block. All of these things come together for a perfect few moments for Aslan there. That was crazy, man. I mean, talk about Firecracker stealing games. That pile up of the RG and then just spending everything at the bridge behind is really tough to stop.
Yeah, once the RG gets in deep, you're just in trouble. You're just in trouble. So there you go. GG, well played, and now the moment you've all been waiting for.
Hey.
Aslan versus Firkin. And I'm sure these guys have played hundreds of games against each other. Well, here comes one more.
Yeah, this is fun. This is a lot of fun. Anytime either of them are ever on a broadcast, that Turkish audience just blows up the chat. We love to see it.
Yeah, maybe one of the most active and loyal audiences out there. Certainly up there in the rankings versus the Ian Riley audience, that's for sure. The unstoppable Ian Riley audience.
And then it feels like everyone else is just a Mo fan.
It's very true. So here we go. RG for Firkin. Or maybe going Ram Rider, actually. Brain broken.
Brain broken. Yeah, feeling like Ram Rider. Could be either, but... And the Inferno here, it's looking like it's RG. So the Inferno from against Aslan putting in a lot of work here early on. We'll see how that works as this matchup keeps going.
Well,
I mean, yeah, that Inferno just baited out so much. I mean, they are relatively even in Elixir, but I think that just for both players to kind of clock, all right, the Inferno could be a problem for Firkin, and for Aslan, he goes, maybe I want to abuse this card.
And Alperin in our Twitch chat, another talented player from that region, saying that he believes Firkin is the best RG player in the world.
Okay. I'm sure there's a handful of people that might have something to say about that, but definitely in the conversation is Firkin.
And this is a bad Ram Rider for Firkin.
Yeah, I mean, it does get a connection there. Luckily, it doesn't get the charge, and this is kind of the matchup you and I were talking about at the top of the day, and here we are seeing it one more time. Does this deck really match up that well against RG? We're about to find out. So far, doing okay. You've got to take a couple shots, but look at this counter push potential.
Yeah, you have to take shots from the classic RG and then prevent shots from the Evoed RG. And that's just the trade-off you have to make, and then find a way to break on through. Right now, this is not going to be a breakthrough push here. Let's see if Aslan can get the Fisherman out of here. Firecracker protected, but nothing here to stop the Evo to RG from shooting. Fishboy helping, Fireball in. And it's just not sequencing the way that Aslan would like defensively.
I was just going to say, I mean, that Lumberjack, you understand kind of the panic play of getting that Lumberjack on the ground, but you cannot play the Lumberjack that high with nothing else to protect it. And if that is your option, if you don't have Inferno Dragon down to help take care of the RG, you've got to protect your Lumberjack, and that Lumberjack just got pulled into no man's land from the Fishboy, and that's why that Royal Giant was able to get so much damage in. Gets Aslan back in the lead, but now a couple of RG shots going to come through.
And one of our Finnish players, Yuso, reminding me that Firkin had a #1 finish last season. So, yeah, there's some support for Firkin and his RG prowess for sure. And Evo Firecracker forcing the Fireball out, doing a good job to help in this bridge fight. Let's see if Aslan can put the pressure on, certainly in a bad situation. Notice the cycle here, trying to make sure that he's going to have something available to stop the Evo RG when it comes in.
And once again, this Inferno Dragon has just been a nuisance for Firkin to deal with. Back around in cycle, but doesn't need to play it yet. LJ right at the bridge. That's going to bait out this Fishboy.
The spell problem for Aslan, there's a he's not been able to get these Fishboys out. Right, the Lumberjack goes there and the Fishermen stay with it's either a little bit of HP. This time the Firecracker does it. 2 Infernos, but the Fireballs will get the breakthrough, and there's just nothing to do against this evolved Royal Giant. GG, well played. Firkin unseats his friend and takes over King of the Hill.
Yeah, really, really well played there. Ram Rider's really never used to deal with the Royal Giant. Royal Giant there at the end, 2 Infernos on top, but that's an easy pull of the trigger with that Fireball. And yeah, I mean, while Aslan did seem to figure out ways to kind of be frustrating, it didn't seem like he really had a way to end this game. You know, it seemed like he kind of figured out the defense, kind of got it locked down. You know, the Infernos were still problems throughout, but never really found a way for that Ram Rider push to come through. The Fisherman always a problem again in this game. Love to see it.
Yeah, the Fisherman, the low HP Fisherman staying in there is really, really hard for him. And then also just, you know, the idea that you're hoping for is that the Ram Rider can stun the RG at the bridge, but the problem is your Ram Rider also has to be your offense, right? So it's one of the things where you're trying to make this decision, this balance between, am I trying to get tower damage right now, or once you're playing from behind, you can't really save that Ram Rider for RG pushes because you have to start putting damage on the board. So it starts to cascade from there, and now we have a new king, at least for the moment.
Yeah, and then for every single Ram Rider push that you need, you have to have the Monk in front to stop the Fisherman, so it becomes this thing about sequencing and then Elixir, and then your opponent recognizes what you need to have happen to break through and then ends up stopping it. You know, we ended up seeing some pretty big bridge battles there, which honestly did kind of go in favor against Aslan most of the time because of the Inferno Dragon, but the thing is all that Elixir spent, you can't really turn it into anything. Whereas with the RG, all that Elixir spent, you just drop the RG at the bridge and it's still going to be a problem, whereas you drop that, you know, that Ram Rider at the bridge, and there's so many ways to control it. So a great job there. You know, you hear one of the best in the world, maybe the best in the world with RG, able to pick up a win with it here. And I think the first win of the day for Firkin, is that correct?
He has a streak. I think that's his first. It might have been 2, but you might be right on the first one. I don't have the sheet. It was his first, getting confirmation from the booth. So very nicely done. And speaking of being the king, next up, the King Elian, who is hoping he can maybe put together a slightly cleaner game here at his first appearance.
Yeah, game number 1 from Elian actually wasn't really that bad. It was just the very end of it. He missed a fireball on 2 Phoenixes, and that's not going to be good for anybody. I don't care who you are.
Firkin switching things up, going hog into the Inferno Tower. So interesting choice here. Firkin maybe thinking that Elian would try to go for a full-on snipe on the RG, and making his choice very clear.
Yeah, I like the change up here from Firkin. Can't hurt. Just known as one player. Might as well change things up to another very, very strong deck. And also would have loved to see a King Tower activation, but not going to get it.
You know, I was having this conversation with my chat the other day, and obviously balancing the Firecracker is probably the first thing to do. But it seems as though no matter what deck you're playing, except for Graveyard, and honestly with Graveyard Freeze being so popular by comparison to regular Graveyard versions, it feels like King Tower activations have become almost a non-factor in the game now. People still get them, but it doesn't seem like people are worried about giving up King Tower activations. Right? Hog Firecracker, you're guaranteed to give one up, but you're not worried about that with this Hog deck. Even minor decks, you're not worried about King Tower activations, really. And I'm wondering if it's time for a little bit of a boost to the King Tower to make it more impactful and maybe a roundabout way of nerfing a lot of these decks and a lot of these cards that historically have not cared about activating King Tower, even though they should.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a difficult conversation because I think the biggest thing is that the Hog Rider is not the win condition anymore, right? So the King Tower used to be such a crucial part of defending against Hog Rider because that King Tower could be the difference between 1 hit and 2 hits, right? And that became the difference between an entire game. Whereas now you see one Firecracker shot comes through and it doesn't even matter what the Hog Rider does. So I think that's one of the reasons why the King Tower in general is just a little bit less of a factor because, you know, the other example is Royal Giant, right? Royal Giant is the other deck where the E-Spirit is easily activating the King Tower over and over, but obviously the King Tower can't reach that Evo to RG. So yeah, I don't really know what the answer is to that conversation, whether it is more of a King Tower buff or if it's just like maybe Hog Rider needs to go back to being the win condition in Hog Rider decks. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing, right? Is he went through the Hog EQ meta where EQ was the win condition. He just didn't care about Hog damage very much. Hog damage was secondary. And now in Hog Firecracker, Hog damage is almost secondary. In a lot of the minor decks, you're just not worried about. I mean, the minor, of course, is sometimes the damage, the win condition, but then it's a secondary as well. So it does seem like maybe, and then the problem arises that maybe NATO becomes a little bit inadvertently buffed by that. So it's a challenge thing trying to balance it all up, but it does feel like
people just don't care about the King Tower being activated.
Yeah, I mean, even to just further that conversation with the miner, like in the decks that I play with Evo, Mortar, and Miner, I'm not looking for miner chip damage a lot of the time. I'm looking for that miner to tank for that goblin, right? Because that goblin is going to do so much more damage. He's going to do as much damage as 3 miners. So yeah, it is crazy how it's kind of just changed up the whole way that we play this game.
Firkin has battled nicely, 892 to 1114 with 1:15 left. Cycling his Evo Firecracker to the right, classic Firecracker to the left for King Elian. And Elian's in this one, no doubt, but Firkin doing a good job of just maintaining that one step ahead.
Vinoth asking in the chat, how do we determine the winner of this Royal Masters format? Well, this format doesn't have necessarily like a set champion the same way that other formats will, and that is a Miss Inferno, and that is going to do it. That last Hog Rider hit comes in. Now we're just within spell cycle range unless Elian can make something happen. But Elian gonna maybe pick up a big win here. High Inferno, bit of a surprise there, but I don't know about those final closing moments there for Elian, but ends up taking the W.
High and late, right? And he was trying to get too much out of the Inferno because he saw the Firecracker behind. But you can play that Inferno tower lower and still pull the Hog and still pull the Firecracker together. So just kind of a funky play. I don't know, again, if we can... We haven't been doing a lot of replays. I know that we have the ability. I don't know if we pulled that one or not, but seeing some of these ending moments are definitely be helpful. That one is a challenging one. A bit of a misstep, it felt like, for Firkin.
Yeah, so Firkin going to fall down, Elian going to stay up on top, and then to finish my thought there to Vinoth is it's basically the winner of the month is whoever has the most wins on the day because they get the most cash, and they'll be probably the person that we reference in future months, kind of like what we did earlier today when we talked about our previous winners in Mohammed Light, Dominic, who was able to pick up 6 wins in April, and then of course our first winner in Faust, who has not been back since his nice 7-run win to kick off this season. And of course, Royale Masters, we do this every single month for you guys that are interested in joining in. We do a qualifier the day before, and then we just have a fun few-hour broadcast the day afterwards, as you guys are a part of right now. 24 matches, you can win a bunch of cash. So if you want to be involved in this conversation, you want to be involved in this match. I mean, I saw someone saying that if they're winning $100 every single game, they'd be a millionaire. We always love people like you in the chat. Get in the game so that we can cast your match. Go follow Royale Masters on Twitter and go join their Discord. Their Discord is incredibly interactive, has all the information that you guys ever need. Rich, a millionaire if they're giving away $100 a game. That's a lot of games.
Yeah, I mean, that's only too many games that you can probably play to get to $1 million by $100 a game. But you know what? People have made some pretty good money playing Clash Royale, and all of the Clash Royale esports ecosystem is open to you. CRL is open. Yeah. Do you know the grand prize for Clash Royale League is $250,000? If you're that good, go win that money. Get that money, son. And of course, get that money right here at King of the Hill. And speaking of money, we do have a money replay here so we can check out what actually happened at the end there with Firkin's placement. And let's keep an eye on the Elixir as well. I'm wondering if he got to 5 at a late moment so he could get that Inferno Tower late. He has 5. And this one, nice, in the right spot, taking care of business. But it's going to be this next cycle that ends up being a big problem for him.
Yeah, nice job there by Elian by making sure that Firecracker doesn't get any splash. Then we see this Hog. It's just late. That's all it is. It's just late. It looks like he was just getting to the Elixir late.
Yeah, well, he's just late and he's high. Like, he didn't need to play it that high. I don't know what he was... I don't know why he was so nervous about a low placement, but played it high. I mean, maybe drop glitch and he gave him the wrong card or something. I don't know. But you have to assume that he was trying to play Inferno Tower, so it's a funky placement.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing that we've seen a few times now when we missed the pull, which is just like you're playing it high to avoid the Firecracker connection. Kind of even like what Elian did at the very end of that game, playing it high to avoid, I guess, the Firecracker connection. Well, if it's Evoed Firecracker, you're already putting yourself in a bad spot, but just play it lower. Just play it lower. It's still going to pull. It's going to give the Inferno Tower more time to sizzle. Firecracker's not going to get any splash damage in, but, you know, Firkin there maybe just looking at what was, you know, it was the Hog, the Firecracker, and Skeletons right there, just going, maybe I need this a bit higher so that, you know, my own defenses can deal with it, but instead just completely misses the Hog.
And all done, but not done is Elian, who gets his first win on the day, and now faces our current leader in Nadir, who would love to come back and start off another solid run.
Yeah, Nadir, it's been a minute since we've had them involved in the conversation, but right back to Hog Rider, and then on the other side of it, we see some Royal Ghost Fish Boy action. So, you know, going to the two most popular win conditions on the day are these two opponents. Monk out, so RG right down to the bridge.
Yeah, that's a bit of a suspect Monk. I know you need to do something to contend with the Ghost, but the Ghost is way less scary. I'd almost rather, I mean, I don't know what his cycle situation was, and maybe he didn't have the guards in cycle yet, so he went with the Monk, but either way, you're just opening yourself up to what we saw, which is a big RG at the bridge.
Yeah, it feels like it was just the wrong units played in the wrong spot. Should have been guards surrounding the Royal Ghost, and then should have been Monk down the opposite lane, although the Fisherman was still there to pull. I don't know, but what I do know is Nadir's about to lose his tower, so he's going for a tower trade, but Fisherman should be back in cycle for his opponent, no? Yes, there it is.
Yeah, just a little late for the Fisherman, but Elian not concerned. He has a tower down. He has his towers in great shape. This is absolutely fine. Elian's going to go for 2 here.
Yeah, I mean, Elian now in a spot to where his opponent's going to work towards most likely his left-hand tower, or Nadir's going to have to change things up, and both of those are bad, because if he goes left-hand tower, then you've got great, you know, cannon fodder for that RG to just work down the exact same lane, and, you know, we'll see. Aggressive mortar at the bridge here to see if he can make anything happen.
And protected, and the Electro Spirit gets the stun, no retarget, so Nadir back in it, but I don't think he has enough time here to break through a Fisherman and get this tower down.
I just don't think there's a way to do this. So RG right behind, Fish Boy going to pull that Monk away, and already this RG is just going to put in at least 4 shots.
And the mortar does not push the Royal Giant.
This is one of those games you just kind of want to close your phone, I feel like.
Yeah, and the Fisherman is going to pull the Hog fine because he's not worried about giving up a shot here. Happy to. King Elian nearly missed this entire competition. Was busy, I guess. I don't know if he was asleep. I don't know if he was still finishing his breakfast. I don't know if he'd gone for a jog and just got lost in the woods experiencing nature. Either way.
Just got that runner's high, you know?
Yeah, right. Now he's back and about to get 2 in a row.
Yeah, and really, really well played. I mean, you know, we both said maybe a bit of a suspect Monk there early on. You see the Fisherman and the Royal Ghost come out, you have to suspect you're going up against Royal Giant. You have to suspect that Royal Giant is an evolved Royal Giant. Obviously, the first one will not be, but if you don't have Monk, what are you going to do? You just got to put straight DPS on the card, and with that little elixir that early on, you're going to take a few shots. So King Elian doing a really good job of just recognizing the macro situation that he was in. Cards maybe misplayed early on, and takes an easy dub.
Yeah, and a nice one too. $200 on the day, plus a 75 for qualifying for the King Elian. So our lowest ranked player overall in the game, having a better result than some of our players who are former world finalists. So that's got to feel nice for him as well.
Yeah, and you know, we got another match here before we get to our break, but then we'll be able to look at the leaderboard, which should be really, really tight right now against Aslan, Nadir, both doing very, very well. I feel like there's probably someone else that's really close in there. Let me see. I'm trying to think. Adriel, maybe not too far behind, but other people that have been pretty quiet today. Samuel Basodo has been very, very quiet today. I think he's not picked up a win yet, so we'll see if he can turn his fortunes around. He has one more go at least. But now next up, we got Elian versus Vitor, who's also been pretty quiet today. I think he's got one win. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right for Vitor, who, you know, I think that there are certain players who benefit tremendously from the dual mode system, right? From the ability to make decisions as you go on through a match, the ability to kind of to try to go for the right matchups as opposed to just play a random matchup game, right? Vitor's never been a ladder player. He's never been a BO1 player, but he has been a very good BO3 player, and I think that he's one of those guys who the format, not like he can't be successful in this format, he certainly can, but the format doesn't play to his top strengths.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, that coin toss that kind of comes back into the conversation when you don't have dual mode. But we'll see if Vitor can turn his fates around. It's been a slow start to the day, but still time to, technically, I mean, if he just wins out, he can still be our king of the hill on the day.
in Electro Spirits both ways. I don't know what the new card plan is for Clash Royale, right? At the moment, it seems like it's focused more on the evolutions. And then probably my guess would be another champion at some point.
Why do you want another spirit?
I think the least likely thing to happen is another spirit. I think that if I'm ranking everything, we got 4. I don't know what kind of spirit they would do at this point. Like, what, a poison spirit? What does that even do? So
yeah, I was just like thinking of the other things in the game that it could possibly be, and yeah, it feels like a poison spirit, but I don't know about that. That's basically what the maybe if it's just like a little bit of the firecracker splash is what that spirit would do, but I want nothing to do with that.
Fireball to clean up, and this will be some shots in the direction from Elian, but Vitor with the early and significant lead.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you look at the way that the two of them played that initial RG strike, and obviously Vitor much, much more successful, just played that much cleaner.
824, 23, 80 in favor of the 3-time world finalist. First trip was in 2020 with Pain Gaming, and then back-to-back appearances in solos for 21 and 22.
Yeah, I mean, really all it was Vitor just used his rage from his Lumberjack dying, and he had his Fisherman behind. So the Fisherman behind actually distracted the Fisherman of Elian to get his RG on the tower. So, you know, a bit of a misstep there from Elian, but now able to even things up with that Evo to RG, and we'll see, pretty much probably see Vitor take this tower now. Nice high skellies there, that's what you want to see.
And then your Fish Boy gets pulled to the opposite universe. And even if you do even if you create pressure the opposite direction, you now have the Evo to RG penetrating in deep. Raged up Phoenix tanked for by both the Evo to RG and the Fish Boy. New Royal Giant in the pocket, and it is just a mudslide.
Too close. Oh, absolutely brutal. And Elian even got an incredible fireball. He got great fireball value in, but Vitor still just kept the pedal to the metal, and that was a beautiful offensive push.
That was a lot, and you see Elian with the last gasps of a desperate man trying to find his way to tower, but unfortunately, sir, you are completely out of air. GG, well played. Vitor takes over as King of the Hill.
I mean, what a great push. Then it all comes down to that one Fisherman working down the right-hand lane, the high skellies there to distract the opponent's Fisherman, and then the pile up in the pocket. He goes Lumberjack, Phoenix, and back-to-back, and then the Phoenix Eggs pops of his own. A fireball from Elian comes down to clean up all of that, and it felt like that might just stop it right in its tracks, but Vitor goes absolutely not. Fisherman at the bridge, Lumberjack in the pocket, rages up the RG, I mean, rages up that Phoenix like you called out. Absolutely beautiful, and that's one of the craziest things. I mean, I've never been a big Royal Giant player. It's just not really my play style. I don't know, I've tried so many times, but the cool thing about RG is when you see people overspend defensively, take care of that Royal Giant, and then that Royal Giant deck becomes a bridge spam deck. I always love watching that happen, and that's exactly what Vitor did there.
Yeah, and we do have a suggestion from GameSaver, who's worked with a few players. Air Spirit, push everything back. So Air Spirit.
It's a snowball, I think is what we call it.
Yeah, I think yes, a less controllable snowball is what you got there.
It just pushes things towards your tower all the time when it jumps. You know what? I'm here for it. I'm always here for weird cards. Let's take a look here at the leaderboard. Should be a lot closer here at the top. Still a couple outliers at the bottom though, Rich, as we look at Soki and Basodo, who only have their qualifier money on the day so far.
Aslan, 5 wins. Nadir right behind him, and yeah, he talked about that. Adriel, Vitor, Elian coming up into 5th place on those 2 wins ahead of Firkin, Sam, and Soki. So let's see. I'm curious to see if Sam and Soki can get us a star frame, get the full distribution from one day. Everyone walks away with a win, but they both only have one more shot to do it.
Love it. I think it's the only time where we're really going to get a good use of Starframe there. And if you guys don't know what it is, go watch more disc golf.
Yeah.
Samuel Basodo, I mean, the cool thing about this is anyone can still actually be on the top of the hill. We have one more leg in this. We got 8 more matches coming your way. Samuel Basodo is up next. If he were to win all the way out, he could be the king of our hill here in July. But we got to take another break. We got to let these players get ready for the next leg coming your way. So do not move a muscle. Royale Masters King of the Hill edition here in July. We'll be right back with you and with us.
Welcome back to Royale Masters King of the Hill, the only competition where 8 people play each other over and over and over again and win money every single time that they win. There's no other competition doing that right now, Andrew, as far as I know.
No.
And I'm going to go ahead and stand by that as a definitive statement.
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, Royale Masters has bangers format all year long. We've said it for a couple of years now, whether it's their dual mode, whether it's Summer Clash, party mode, or this King of the Hill. I absolutely love it. And the cool thing about King of the Hill today is no one has run away with it yet. Gans, Aslan, and Nadir have been the 2 strongest players so far on the day, but with how close the competition has been, any one person with a run here in our last 8 matches could actually be on top, including Samuel Basodo, who has had a very, very quiet day here. And honestly, Rich, kind of a quiet 2023, even though he's still right there. He's still just right inside that striking distance for World Finals. We haven't really said his name much at all.
Samuel kind of like ebbs and flows with his relationship with the game, right? Quite famously last year, he won one of our first golden tickets and then just, I don't know, lost his phone for a few months and then showed up to World Finals and went out late every single night and joined the beautiful city of Helsinki, and then still ended up going to top 3 for World Finals. So I honestly, at this point, I'm done trying to unravel the enigma that is Samuel Basodo, and I'll just assume that he'll show up on the most important days and perform.
I will always say this. I am 100% excited for a day that Samuel Basodo is going to be in a competition. So today is absolutely no different, and we have a great World Finals rematch from 2022 here. 2 guys that were both there, 2 guys that hope to be there again this year. Vitor top of your screen, Samuel at the bottom. And that King Tower activation, like we talked about, Rich, just kind of seems like it's for fun these days.
Well, look, when you're playing Royal Giant versus Royal Giant, you can Fisherman to the middle rather than Fisherman high and pull that RG into King Tower range. And just the question is, can you make that important? Can you make that actually impactful? And it's going to be curious to see whether or not someone can actually make use of that. At the moment, meh.
Barbarian gets a... Yeah,
my brilliant
that's a good way to put it.
At the moment, meh.
So Sam setting up for a defense here. RG in front of everything, then Lumberjack, Fisherman behind, get that DPS in.
Right, and so there you see. Right, I think the killing blow was that activated King Tower.
Yep. And RG gets no shots in, so one of the few times that seems to be happening at all.
And just cycling more is Samuel. Ready, and he Fisherman's directly into the dropped evolved Royal Giant. We'll see what his plan is as he contends with what's going to be a pretty big downhill push from Vitor.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is obviously to get a ton of DPS in, but I just don't love what he's setting himself up for. Yeah, that fireball value is just absolutely massive. And while he doesn't take a ton of damage from it, he doesn't really have a real counter push, so he has to go opposite lane.
And he did cycle back to the second Fisherman, but now that Fisherman is just not a factor in this conversation for this Royal Giant push. And things going very well for Vitor as we've gone through 2.5 minutes.
Vitor just right back at the bridge again. E-Spirit for the Skellies, Phoenix for that Lumberjack. And RG going to get a couple shots once again. Ooh, I don't know if we got a second one there.
Well, it damage in either way, 1468, and now even an evolved Royal Giant, and see the Fisherman trying to predict the other Fisherman in the middle there for Vitor, and that did not pull the RG, no extra stun, and kaboom, kabang.
Wow!
Not
it didn't get the shot.
I had a kablow I had lined up for that last one. I was going to really have some fun with it, and just didn't happen, and now I'm very disappointed.
So Evo to RG just right at the bridge here, and gets one shot.
The Electro Spirit timing was perfect from Vitor. You can't get better than that.
The E-Spirit from Vitor all day has been absolutely masterful, and Samuel Basodo might be ending his day with a bit of a goose egg.
And I like that
there is a chance he has one more game in him, but it's a tough 80 seconds here.
Yeah, I do like that Vitor isn't just going for the fireball cycle here, knowing that he could get himself caught flat-footed.
Yep. And yeah, I love those goblins there, and there you go, RG comes in. The goblins there just baited out 3 elixir from Sam, I think, that he just didn't want to spend, and then he realized with the RG coming down the lane after that, he does not have enough to deal with it. And Cheeseburger Freedom Man asking in the chat, is everyone just using the same deck? Well, no, but about 4 of them have been rotating throughout the entire day. You've seen a couple outliers.
I was just going to say, Cheeseburger Freedom Man sounds like a weird person they encounter in Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Right?
I was just going to say, it's like a Cartoon Network character for sure. And yeah, absolutely. But yeah, big shout out to you with your sweet name. I mean, really, man, that's kind of what competitive play is these days, is there's just like a handful of decks. There's about really 4 or 5 of them, and 3 of them are played about 80% of the time.
You know what? Hold on. Cheeseburger Freedom Man, there is something. Because I just Googled it, and I don't know what Cheeseburger Freedom Man is, but there's a fandom for it.
Wow.
An electoral candidate during the 2016 election? What? What? Dude. What?
I would have voted for Cheeseburger Freedom Man.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of surprised they didn't win. Cheeseburger Freedom Man.
What more do you want?
Yeah, I mean, you have food, you have a cheeseburger, you have cheese and burger, you have freedom.
And then Nate says better than German tacos. I mean, you're talking to two guys that lived in SoCal, so I don't know.
No, German
tacos a thing?
German tacos is the new name for hot dogs. Yeah, hot dogs we decided are not a sandwich, but they are a German taco.
All right, well, I just having trouble keeping up with the kids these days. And it looks like Basodo will get one more shot to get that $100 prize. He will not be able to be our winner of King of the Hill today, but he at least has an opportunity to take home a little bit more cash. Adriel spending a lot to defend that mortar. Now going to take this charged Ram Rider shot. And
that snowball, I really feel like that snowball should have retargeted the Inferno to the Phoenix. Did he just push it closer to the mortar than it was the Phoenix? That was strange.
Yeah, that's a good call. I actually didn't even recognize. Dude, if you look at the replay, it actually doesn't make any sense at all. It actually pushes it on top of the Phoenix. It is literally on top of the Phoenix, and it still targets the mortar. So here we go. Second verse, same as the first.
I'm now wondering if the Cheeseburger Freedom Man in our chat is the presidential candidate.
I mean, most likely it is. Dude, I can't get over the fact that that mortar is not getting retargeted with the snowball every single time. I don't understand. It's twice in a row now. The exact same interaction happened. Mortar comes down, Inferno comes down, Phoenix comes down, snowball comes in, and then the Inferno stays on the mortar. So, weird, but either way, Adriel has the lead.
And cheeky little pickup there with the Mire. And now Evo'd mortar to the right-hand side, and there comes the Monk with a perfectly timed reflection.
Yeah, that whole Evo'd mortar Monk situation becomes a lot less fun for the mortar player now with that Goblin involved, but at least the HP makes it so it stays alive a little bit longer past that Monk ability.
And just not even messing around. The arrow snowball push or throw onto the Evo'd Firecracker. Not even taking a chance of letting that one hang out on the board.
Yeah, 5 elixir for 3. What a world we're living in Clash Royale.
And this is a nice deep Monk in here, 1661. Vitor starting to battle back. Maybe make a conversation out of this.
Yeah, I mean, Cheeseburger Man, Freedom Man, I guess I feel like we have to say the whole name now that we've had this whole conversation talking about the evolutions kind of breaking the game. I mean, if you remember when Champions first came in the game, there was definitely a bit of a learning curve or a bit of growing pains as well. So, you know, whether it is the nerfs that are coming in, the adjustments that'll happen, or as Rich was talking about before, the addition of more evolution cards, I do feel like we'll find that balance. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, I think they will be a long-term win. Just at the moment, it's like anything new in this game. At the moment, it's not well balanced. Will that one retarget? Oh, it does.
Yes.
Oh my word!
Retargets.
The Inferno Dragon did actually retarget something that was not the mortar, and the mortar does get a huge evolved shot, forcing out the Monk, and that's not the sequencing. And here we go, Adriel finally throwing a balloon in the final minute of gameplay.
Balloon mortar here. Phoenix is tanked for. Actually, Monk doesn't take it out. That's game. I mean, whether or not that it was said and done with that balloon, the fact that the miner came in, the Phoenix stayed alive, there was so much going on there that went well for Adriel and went poorly for Vitor, who might be taking the end of his run today, and gets Aslan in the chat. Good to see you, man. Congratulations on your very successful day so far.
G to the G, well to the plate, sir. We'll see if he can add more, but right now it's Adriel, our King of the Hill. And yes, despite the Inferno Dragons that were apparently attached to mortars, I don't know what was happening, still able to make it happen. And that loon at the end, very nice to sneak all the way through and get on tower.
Yeah, and it also became one of those things where you're like, well, why doesn't he just play the Phoenix instantly? But it is the smarter play, because if you play the Phoenix and he doesn't respond with anything, you've just spent 8 elixir. So while I would have played the Phoenix numerous times to try to catch that Inferno, and maybe I would have and had success earlier on, definitely the correct decision was made with that weird targeting situation from Adriel. But those mortars were actually really, really impactful. It felt like that was maybe the big misstep, was just not giving a little bit more attention to the mortar and just thinking that the Inferno was going to be enough every single time.
Yeah, and it did feel like there should have been more opportunity. Of course, the mortar definitely creating problems, but you know, you weren't pulling the mortar in the middle, not catching miners. And I think that the big thing was maybe that he was concerned in the long run about being stretched thin while trying to control mortars, and then that balloon sliding through at the end. So a tough spot for Vitor. Either way, Adriel's on the board now with a matchup against a man he might match up with at World Finals.
Some of the things that people have been talking about with the evolved mortar, to maybe, you know, to throw in the discussion of what needs to be balanced out of it, I actually don't know if I agree, obviously a bit biased, but do you think there should be an opportunity to stop that goblin hit? Because as of right now, if the mortar, Evo mortar connects to the tower, the goblin gets a hit 100% of the time. Do you think there should be an ability to stop that goblin?
So that goblin, if it's not killed before it hits, it has nobody to retarget to a troop?
Well, it just hits. Like, basically, it always hits. Like, once the mortar shot comes down, the goblin is like stabs the tower, and then you can deal with it. Because the way that the splash damage works and the timing, you can't actually drop a unit down to catch it or anything, and you can't log it because of also the timing. It's just like this weird thing. Do you think there should be a way to control it, or do you think if you get an Evo mortar lock, you should get the goblin hit?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't dealt with it enough on one side or the other to have an educated response, really. Having a troop that hits no matter what you do seems wrong.
Right? Because then if you ever get a tank in front of it, which is the idea, then you've automatically taken 2 shots, essentially, right? Like, basically, the perfect timing means that you don't get that second shot from the goblin, but it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it was something that Mo had been talking about, saying that that's one of the things that's broken about it, and I do agree, maybe if something is 100% of the time in interaction, maybe that's not the way to go.
Yeah, that seems funky to me. It should be spellable at the very minimum before it creates any damage, and the ability to catch it would be that, because you're already forcing a weird troop placement to catch that goblin anyway, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that the spend to stop that one goblin is already annoying. I don't know. And
the fact that the mortar is already locked on your tower, right? So you're like, well, I got to spend down low because the goblin's going to do more immediate damage, especially if it has a tank. But that means I'm also ignoring the mortar that's on my towers. So, yeah, very, very fascinating conversation, and very good fireball value there for Adriel.
I think the big thing that I see people saying it in the chat in a couple places, is just the Evo cards probably shouldn't increase HP, but you know, that's one of the big problems with them.
Yeah, like the Evo Firecracker should be taken out by arrows is like the biggest kind of clamoring out there in the space.
Well, look at this Loon in deep. I don't know if it will connect. The Ice Spirit trying to hold in no connection, but does get death damage. And
I was just going to say, how on earth is Sosa going to defend this? And there's absolutely no way. There's just so much elixir on the board. Yeah, I think we were all kind of watching and just going, is this... There's like 3 elixir on the board for Sosa. There's like 20 on the board for Adriel.
Is this over? Is that the term that's correct here? Over? I think it's over.
So Sosa done for the day. As you guys can see, Samuel Basodo is the lucky number. Well, I guess, you know, considering his fortune throughout the rest of the day, he's maybe the deserved person that gets one last opportunity to close out our day. But Aslan, Firkin, Nadir, and King Elian all coming up next before Basodo gets his 4th chance at getting that $100. And Lava Hound, bit of an overwhelm, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Lava Hound should have won both of its matches today.
And got a big one there. Now, I don't know. Can we throw that victory screen back up for a moment here? Because I just want to point out how nice that victory screen is. Can we? Is it possible? Is it loaded in? Just because the little bit of animation here on the Valkyrie, very nicely done. You see the waving. This was custom. This is custom work. The axe going back and forth. The waving tunic or whatever you want to call the pants thing, right? This is nice. This is nicely done. Well played.
It almost looks a little fuzzy too, right? It almost looks like you can see the texture there on the clothing. So yeah, big shout out there to RoyaleMSTRS for that awesome animation. I love that. I knew exactly what you were doing as soon as you were asking to pull it back up, because I know you, and also, yeah, it's purty, real purty.
It's purty. Yes, sir. And speaking of purty, as that money stacks up, that feels purtier and purtier. And right now we're getting to a man who's hopefully going to stack a lot more. And I think the only person left... Aslan is our leader, right? I'm not wrong in that? Aslan's our current leader?
Yes, he should still be our leader,
The only person who could still go for a full 10 and go for 1,000 today, but has to win out from this point forward.
Yeah, and you know, I really like what we saw to Aslan today. A lot of great competition, different decks. You know, seems like he's pretty well versed, being able to stack up with Royal Giant. Wasn't able to do it against Firkin, if I believe that's how it went when Aslan and Firkin played. I think it was a double RG matchup, but otherwise, it's just been really good stuff. It does seem like RG has been his win condition of choice, but we've seen him do it with Hog, and it looks like in the interim he's been playing a lot of different games, some with Mortars, some with MK Wall Breakers. So he's been putting in some practice while we've been casting these matches.
And a mini P.E.K.K.A.
Ooh.
Hello. Can I get you
Hasn't
something?
played any games with a mini P.E.K.K.A.
Who's playing mini P.E.K.K.A. right now?
I know, especially mini P.E.K.K.A. minor. I mean, we've seen some mini P.E.K.K.A. Hog, but...
Well, some people have suggested that mini P.E.K.K.A. might be nice in the game right now because of the ability for it to work against both Hog and RG. The problem is that RG tends to run Fisherman, which is a real problem for that mini P.E.K.K.A. But we'll see if that mini P.E.K.K.A. can be a factor here against Hog.
The stun knockback for ground units from that Evo Royal Giant is something also that I feel like needs to get just a little bit more attention. I don't know which one needs to go, but I don't think having all of that stun, slow, knockback damage on ground troops is the way to go.
Well, I think we've seen, and you might be right. I think that we have seen that there are ways to deal with that, right? And that's the stun locking it, stuff like that. I'm curious how oppressive it'll feel. It would feel with an RG that had an EVO RG that had normal RG HP, right? That's the big question. Until we, I guess balance is a weird, imprecise art as you try different things out. But I would be curious to see if it feels the same way if RG's died normal, or if it would still feel like it's too much. I don't know.
The thing with the mini P.E.K.K.A. defending that Hog Rider is it just really sets up the mini P.E.K.K.A. to line up the Evo Firecracker on the opponent's side. So Evo Firecracker putting in a lot of work on both sides of the board here as Adriel is trying to take that lead back, and will with that Hog Rider hit. Mr. Hat Dude asking, is Queen Archer OP? No. I think there was a moment there, and we saw kind of like flashes of it during last month's CRL, where it felt like people thought because Earthquake was kind of the spell to go to, and Arrows was the spell to go to, a Snowball, that Archer Queen might be able to find a place in the meta. But I think the problem is her range versus Firecracker is so short that she just becomes a non-factor most of the time.
And mini P.E.K.K.A. trying to do more. Right now, it's the single lane conversation, and that Hog needs some support here from the evolved Firecracker. Yeah. Dual lane opportunities here for Aslan, but he's starting to get in trouble in the single lane battle.
Yeah, it's the same thing of what you were just talking about like what seems like a good way to take care of stuff, right? I mean, it seems like that mini P.E.K.K.A. should be able to deal with these Hog Riders or the MK, but the problem is the mini P.E.K.K.A. and the MK have to go in one spot, and that's right down the lane where the Evo Firecracker can line up. So Adriel doesn't even really have to think twice about how he wants to get offense in. He just sends in the Hog Rider and then puts the Firecracker behind it, and there's no way for Aslan to get to that Firecracker.
Yeah, you have to be like playing something up high inside to control the Firecracker angle at the same time, but then you're spending all this extra elixir for it. So the mini P.E.K.K.A. seems like a bright idea, but Firecracker and Fisherman, 2 Fs, giving an F grade to the mini P.E.K.K.A. in this meta.
Yeah, it's those growing pains of just trying to, like, you know, I think that's one of the reasons why I talked about that comment from Mr. Hat Dude, is where you looked at the Archer Queen and it felt like she should be able to find a place now. It really did. That damage even on the RG for her to go invisible because fishermen are everywhere. It just felt like there was ways for it to work. But just like you're seeing here with the Mini P.E.K.K.A. and the MK, two of the best responses in the old game for Hog Rider, it just gives you way too much lineup and time. Those units are also kind of slow and easily distractible for that Firecracker to just put in way too much damage.
So now here's the question, Andrew, as we go into our next matchup of Adriel and Firkin, and Adriel now has tied for the lead overall in our weekly's competition. Does Firkin go to Royal Giant here, or does he try to do something different? And if you're Adriel, like, how much are you building your deck around trying to get at least a semi-snipe against RG?
Yeah, I mean, those are all really good questions. When you look at Firkin's decks that he played most recently in the competition, it was, you know, Firecracker Hog with Monk, and then it was RG, Firecracker Hog with Monk, RG. So it's kind of just been like this repetitive cycle. I think if you're Adriel, you go for the snipe. I think 100% you go for the snipe. Now, I don't know even what that snipe looks like, right? Because we saw Firkin run, oh yeah, it wasn't a mirror matchup against Aslan. It was against Aslan running the deck that we thought actually matched up well against RG, but Firkin was able to play through that. So I think it's his last chance of the day. He started his day off with his comfort deck. I think you should go back to your comfort deck. It feels like it. If people are calling you the best RG player in the world, this isn't dual format. I would go back to that. And then for Adriel, I think, yes, you absolutely look for the snipe on RG. If you get caught looking because he goes with something wild, then that's on you, and that's okay. I think, though, if he runs RG and you just get flat out beat with it, that's a problem.
And here we go. We'll find out in a moment. As kind of a slow start here from these two. As you can see, 3 left, and interesting, it's the tombstone out of Firkin.
Are we going to see like a weird Splash Yard version, or is it going to be a weird Tombstone RG version? About to find out. Okay, so maybe going to the skies.
Interesting choice, and I like the swerve, to use a word you like.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this a lot.
And bye-bye to the Skelly King, courtesy of the drill. I might be going to GY here instead. With the arrows, archers, Skelly King.
Yeah, the archers definitely change up that conversation a little bit.
And very slow is the play.
Very curious to see how this game is going to unfold. Obviously, Firkin's deck way heavier, doing a good job, obviously, keeping up with the cycle here in single elixir, because Adriel's been playing very patiently.
Well, this changes things a lot, too, for Adriel, because if this is GY, and there we go, his best defense against Graveyard is his Earthquake. And that really changes his math on how he thinks he's going to get power damage.
Absolutely, because Earthquake obviously going to do a very good job against that Tombstone, but now Tombstone becomes an incredibly formidable opponent because that Earthquake needs to be saved for the Graveyard. So, yeah, I really like what Firkin is coming out with here, because not only is it different, but it's unpredictable past that first layer. If you go unpredictable and you come out with Lava Hound, yeah, okay, your opponent maybe wasn't expecting it, but he still has been playing against a lot of Lava Hound. This is a whole different layer, and that's kind of the one thing you don't want to have happen.
And nice penetration there with the log for the Tombstone. Barb's able to clean that one up. The slower cycle is a fact of that feature, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's tough because the Tombstone up high is obviously the best defense, but then it makes it so that the log is actually a real viable option to get that Hog Rider through. So does it become a Tombstone in the center and then archers off to the side? We're going to have to see how Firkin wants to adjust, but I don't love just playing it up high.
And he's going to go ahead and take a couple hog shots here and set up for a massive counter push. Graveyard in, Evolved Barbarians in. Is Fireball available for the Firecracker? And it is. EQ going to work. Solid defense here from Adriel, but can he continue to maintain it?
Barbs.
Oh boy.
Dude, that's huge. One evil barb almost gets through, and then the 3 get the swing in, and now he can just go hyper aggressive at the bridge with the Skeleton King.
Yeah.
Love it.
Just, and look at how far behind on Elixir Adriel is now. This is just real trouble for him. Firkin,
He's got the Earthquake.
yeah, Firkin maintaining the pressure, and look at this. Just an onslaught, an absolute onslaught, and Adriel has nothing he can do.
Yeah, Firkin doing everything correctly. He's really just riding that Elixir advantage that he has, taking as much damage as he possibly can, and finally, after what feels like a full minute of Adriel just gasping for air, he's able to reset now. 680, 1956. High tombstone to catch the Evoed Firecracker, and Firkin has been doing a really good job, Rich. 100% of the time that fireball goes to the Evoed Firecracker, and then 100% of the time the arrows go to the regular Firecracker. I love the discipline.
And still comes out 1 Elixir ahead as he splits his archers left and right and goes Evolved Barbarians to shred the Hog Rider. 52 seconds left. Graveyard in left-hand lane. Arrows to clear. Skeletons trying to work. Someone's waving the white flag on Adriel's behalf in the chat or in the gallery. And there you go. GG, well played. No one's breaking 10 today, Andrew. It's official.
No, absolutely not. But that was a really, really fun game for Firkin to take Adriel off the King of the Hill. I love exactly all the layers that he brought to that match, right? He knows who he's playing against. He has to respect his opponent. He knows his opponent is not going to just give him an easy RG matchup. So he goes, all right, let me go to something a little bit less predictable. Let's go to something super unpredictable. So he comes out with Graveyard, Evo, and Barbs. But not only does he play a great Graveyard matchup, but he has the discipline of his spell power of just Fireball. Every time that Evo Firecracker comes down, Firecracker regular, arrows come out every single time, and it just made it so that Firkin could only defend in one way, which all of a sudden, I mean, it just became this incredible cascading effect of having to use the Earthquake, so the Tombstone was impactful, and, you know, I could go on for 10 minutes about how Firkin played that perfect.
He did, and you should, except for bring that Barbarian back on screen, because I just want to talk about how beautiful the Barbarian is. Can we get that flying Barb back out here? I don't know who's doing this. Who's look at the sword moving, the legs. I feel like his chest is getting more swole somehow at the same time, right? He's like,
we need like a Super Saiyan mode to where it can. That's the next thing for the animator, who I'm sure probably doesn't have anything else to do with their time. But a Super Saiyan mode to get him to go to the Evoed mode, because that'd be sweet.
Ooh,
that'd be sweet.
That would be sick. Yeah, that's the explosion. I like that. I think I'd enjoy that. And by the way, I also want to point out. Our producer said it earlier. It was like, what's up with this music? The current music for Clash Royale that they introduced alongside like the in-game music, the kind of like the rock out stuff, is such a wonderful refresher. And I've been asking for this feature for years. I know it's a silly feature, but I wish you could choose your music, your in-game music, and that music tracks were a collectible, like the music tracks were things you could win or collect or get alongside your battle banners and your emotes. I'd love to have like 30 different versions of the Clash Royale theme to cycle through the game. That'd be fun.
Agreed. Because I've had music turned off in-game for years. Literally, I didn't even know about the new music other than when we're on broadcast, because I just don't play with it. Because it's just, after 7 years of hearing, you know, very similar things, you kind of just want to hear the game sound.
Yeah.
When my girlfriend can hum the game music and hum the opening of like the Supercell sound, then it lets you know I've played a lot of Clash Royale in my life.
Yeah, maybe a couple of games here and there, but what we really need is, now we need like a reggaeton version of the song. We need a K-pop version of the theme song. We need to start really like hitting all the genres, and I know you out there in chat world would love to get a K-pop one. I think that's probably the leading. Can we get Psy on that? Is that possible? If we're gonna go with my favorite K-pop.
Someone says, what is the strongest unit on Clash Royale? Probably the Firecracker, I would have to say at this point.
Right now.
I think so.
And speaking of right now, Firkin up next, and if Firkin wins out, he will tie for #1. So let's see if Firkin can take out Nadir, King Elian, and Samuel Basodo and end up in the 5-win club.
Speaking of #1, pretty cool to have that #1 badge that he just picked up.
You got suggestions for a funk version, for a salsa version?
Dude, I would love a funk version of Clash. That would be so sweet.
I want the trap version too.
I want like the old school like techno version, like the dun, 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 dun. Like I want something like that.
I feel you on that.
So
look at this balloon. Look at this balloon.
Yeah. Monk ability able to keep that Phoenix at bay, but a last second fireball from Firkin gonna stop any big time damage coming through. Now Nadir gonna have to defend.
Royale Masters, can you please time yourself out on the YouTube chat for suggesting the ska version? Oh my word. We all wear bucket hats too.
I love it. Also because most of the people in the chat don't even know what ska is.
Frostdust, longtime viewer in the Twitch chat.
Which country is Firkin from? Turkey.
Turkey, yeah. Frostdust in the Twitch chat suggesting Slayer for the song, which, you know what? I'm always down for some Slayer.
RG in the back here, and Nadir setting up a Monk to keep this RG pushed away, but obviously gonna have to think about that fish boy, so maybe a miner comes down in front since goblins are out, but no, instead just the ops to get an Inferno down.
And you see, that's the same Inferno Tower placement that lost the game a few rounds ago, right? Except for nothing knocked to the outside.
Made me feel old with that comment about ska. Hey man, don't worry. We're all in the same boat, you, me, Rich, and apparently our producer.
That's an evolved Royal Giant, very deep inside of your life. Nadir, that's inside your life. Nadir!
I mean, Nadir did a good job with the late deployed goblins to avoid the barrel, but damage already done. 498, 15-14, and the best RG player, dubbed by someone in the chat, showing that he could be.
You have to play the goblins late to avoid the barrel if you're playing against the classic idea of Royal Giant, but then the evolved Royal Giant is in too deep, and that ability just shreds the goblins. So stuck between a rock, a hard place, and an even harder place.
Yeah, because you're like, well, the goblins have to come down. I can't just not play them, but I need them to get damage. But if I play them at the time that it's most expected, they're going to get barreled off the board. Oh, the RG's on my tower. So it's just a horrible spot to be in. Very well played there by Firkin, who's rocking the Evo to RG emote. I'm embarrassed to admit this. I've never played with the Evo RG. I've unlocked all the other ones first because they're just more my style. I still have not played with Evo RG.
Me neither. I haven't done it. I've been, abusing Firecracker and playing some Mortar here and there. But man, maybe on my Mini. My Mini is an RG main, so maybe I'll try some on that one once I get it unlocked on that account. But it is
you watch these dudes play with it, and it seems fun.
Yeah, fun is a word. That's a word that could be used. I've always wondered, right? Like, so you have the Stinky Cheese deck, right? Which for a while, it was really powerful. And whenever sometimes someone won with that, I was like, are you having fun right now? Is that fun for you to win with this? Or are you just playing Clash? Are you, like, what's happening inside your brain right now? What neurons are firing?
I think winning is always more fun than losing is probably the only thing it comes down to, right? Like, I hate losing, but I hate winning with Elixir Golem, E-Drag, but I like winning more than I like losing. So, yeah, I agree. I think that's probably why I've avoided it and why I have gone to just the Evo'd Mortar. I mean, obviously the bias is there, but also it's like kind of the one Evo that people are talking about the least other than the skeletons, and I'm not going to do that to myself. There's no reason I want to be that miserable. But, yeah, I can't do it. I will do it, though. I should, because I bet I'll win a lot of games playing Evo'd RG.
And we get the comment back to the music. We get the comment, I need Electrify's Clash Royale rap as my main menu music, which, if you have never seen that, look up Electrify with a 1 for the I, and put that into YouTube and Clash Royale rap, and you'll have an experience that many of us had back in, I want to say 2017, when that one came out. It was a thing it's a part of our history.
You know which one I want, Rich, is I want Beyond the Game. Anytime
How dare you?
Juicy J is playing, anytime Juicy J is playing a game, he should be able to make everyone hear Beyond the Game.
I just got a headache. Just the mere, just the thought, and now my head hurts. Don't even. I know you want to sing the. I know you were about to sing it too. I know you were.
I know. I won't do it. Sarp Turhan. Looks like they're saying 100K, Rich. I don't know if they're talking about that thing behind you.
Oh. Oh yeah. Well, we can take a look at it when we come back on a game. I have a thing. I have a thing back there. That's cool.
So here we go. Second time today we're seeing this deck. Firkin's rocking. Happy to see it again.
And as soon as the fireball comes out, what do? You play the thing that fireball's supposed to kill. Nice bar barrel to stop the heal spirit from destroying your universe, but Firkin out to a very nice early lead and has Cage, Zappies, Evolve Barbarians. This could be trouble.
Yeah, absolutely, because that fireball just goes, where on earth do I get played? On top of the flying machine? On top of the Evoed Barbs? Do I need to save it for the Royal Hogs? Well, what about the annoying Zappies that are going to make it so that RG never gets to tower? So Firkin running a very, very good deck for the matchup he's in.
I'm very curious to see if the heal spirit gets more involved on defense here. Because you have, when the Evo RG starts stomping, and the heal spirit just to keep those troops a little bit more beefy when that happens.
Yeah, that is definitely something that could happen. But right now, opting to just use it for offensive prowess is Firkin. He gets only on top, I think, of one piggy there, maybe like 1 1/4, and gets to 1202 to 2 untouched towers.
Yeah, I mean, this is just tough for Elian. He's in trouble on both sides. Anytime that you have a Goblin Brawler start punching your tower, that you feel, it just feels bad, man.
Yeah.
Also, he hits
someone in the chat asking about Spear Goblins and why they're used everywhere, or Stab Goblins is what they meant. And yeah, I mean, after the buff that those Stab Goblins got, they're, you know, pretty much the strongest 2 elixir card in the game. The DPS that they put out, the cycle that it helps. We find as you get higher up, those cards that are cheap that can do a lot will be used very, very regularly by the best.
And you saw as I was talking about earlier, the heal spirit used on defense to support the Evolved Barbarians. And you're seeing the dividends get paid here as the Evolved Barbarian goes all the way to tower and forces out a Lumberjack. So just what I surmised ended up coming true. It's almost like I've watched this game before.
Yeah, the Evoed Barbs, man, they've been a big problem in this game. They've been getting a lot of value.
Well, you support those with the heal spirit, and they're just nasty.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it's been nice to see the synergy with the Evoed Barbs and the heal spirit really paying off. As this regular Barb gets on top of tower, and now heal spirit very far behind these piggies, and maybe just 1 step too far behind.
Oh, but look at that flying machine. Left-hand lane, both sides down under 700 HP. And huge problem as the Evo Barbs come out early in cycle this time in the back.
These decks that Firkin is running are so frustrating to play against. If you've pretty much found it early on that you can't really break through, then it's just kind of this slow, painful death as they just keep piling up this dual lane pressure. And that's exactly the spot Elian's in. I mean, he hasn't given up yet, but there's just really no way for him to get any sort of offense in. And now I think he's waving the white flag. No, it's that last-second Phoenix.
Well, he's fighting for his life here, but that was a lost cause. GG, well played. And now Firkin, 1 win away from tying our leaders and ending up with a nice 500 on the day.
Yeah, and definitely not an easy out there as Samuel Basodo, looking to get his 1 win on the day, could be fighting, putting in a little extra oomph in this final matchup. Andrew, from 1 to 10, rate P.E.K.K.A. Maybe 4?
I was going to say a 3. I was going to say a 3 right now.
I feel like 3 or 4. Just feels like she doesn't really have a spot in the meta right now. Even in like bridge spam decks, it just feels better to play almost anything other than P.E.K.K.A. because what is she good at? What is she good at right now? I mean, if you play against Hog Rider, you're lining up a Firecracker, and if you're playing against Royal Giant, you're setting up that Fisherman. Way too much elixir in the tank to be spent on 1 card. So, and the most easily distractible unit maybe in the game, especially because goblins and skeletons are everywhere. So yeah, actually, I'm gonna go down 1 even to where Rich was, and I'm gonna say P.E.K.K.A.'s a 3 right now, and I'd probably give mini P.E.K.K.A. maybe a 4.5. So not much more.
Yeah, most of the high DPS single target melee troops are just not not it right now. Mini P.E.K.K.A, not it right now. Mama P.E.K.K.A, not it right now. Prince was kind of it for a minute with the MK Prince Minor Ball Breakers deck, but even Prince kind of not it right now. They're just not feeling it, dude. They're just not feeling it. And I did see someone ask about the Dagger Goblin. They said Stab Gobs. Yeah. That tells you right where the meta is that Stab Goblins are a key feature in the meta, and because they are, single target DPS troops like the P.E.K.K.A, Mini P.E.K.K.A, and Prince just not having a good place right now, which is a question, right? So far, all the evolutions are focusing on commons, and I think that's the way for a while. And I think that there almost is an argument to kind of to not focus on rares for a little while. I think most of the rares are in a pretty good spot, but there are definitely some epics that I feel like might need the evolution touch before the rares do, like Mama P.E.K.K.A and like Prince maybe.
So here we go. Final matchup of the day at Royale Masters King of the Hill edition. Firkin looking to tie our leader. Samuel Basodo looking to pick up his first win on the day. 5 minutes to see which way it's going to go.
Final match. And that's a... Firkin would love that fireball back. That was, I don't even know if you, that was a, I don't have words for how wrong that fireball went.
Yeah, I mean, you hate to see it in the final match of the day, especially when it's this important, but Firkin is... I just watched it again on replay, and it's just hilarious. It's like a play that I would make.
And Samuel gets out to an early lead against this graveyard deck. People asking about Mini P.E.K.K.A and Wizard and P.E.K.K.A. All of them are just kind of underwhelming at the moment.
What do you think of a P.E.K.K.A and Wizard Rush? I think that it will work at very, very low trophies.
Yes.
Because what you're looking for there is you're looking to play against someone that sees a P.E.K.K.A, and before even thinking, they just play their best response to P.E.K.K.A, which is a bait card, and then a Wizard will work to clean that off the board, but that's just not going to happen at higher trophies.
And I talking about skipping rares, Wizard is one of the cards that maybe an evolution should touch.
Yep, that was the one I was going to say, but I do agree. I think when you talk about specifically, epics definitely need more focus, and it could be so many epics. I mean, even if it was Witch, right? Even if that Witch just became like she was when she was overbuffed, if it was her Evo, I'd be okay with it. Our tower trade situation coming in right now. Sam takes his easily on the right-hand side.
Yeah, but the not having to use the Earthquake for Sam ends up making it so the Earthquake's available for the graveyard play. So Evo Firecracker Hog Push getting it done opens up defense for Sam, and this is probably GG.
Yeah, it's crazy when 10 elixirs spent from your opponent offensively can be cleaned up pretty much that easily. 8 elixir on the ground, I think, or 9, or yeah, 8 elixir because it was a, no, 7 because it was a Mighty Miner in Earthquake. So negative trades, loses a tower, and looks like Samuel will finally get that W.
That's a nice one. He needed it, definitely needed it. And now the graveyard push opposite lane, but again, you're not even worried about Earthquake on offense. You can just Earthquake these skellies away and ride off into the sunset with $100.
Yeah, and that was a fun kite there from the Hog Rider. Just a little bit of fancy footwork at the end there for Samuel to pull all the tanks away. Firkin not able to close out his perfect day, but we did have a very, very close running on the leaderboard. Maybe the closest one we've had so far in any month.
And GG, well played, Samuel Basodo. And yeah, I think you're right. I think that in the previous months, the leader has had at least 6 or 7. So 5 keeps it real nice and even. What I don't know is, did everybody get a win? We'll have to take a look at the leaderboards. Did everybody get one?
I think so. I think so. Well,
Soki,
no. There it is. Wow. One of the highest people on the CRL leaderboard not able to get a win here today at the King of the Hill. So that lets you know anything can happen. And apparently, if I look back here, yeah, Tasty Bacon adding insult to injury 2 months in a row. Sosa has come out. Last month he tried Sosa. This month he's going Soki, and 0 wins. That's tough, man.
Yeah, that's two months in a row where you just bagel it. That hurts. That hurts. Now, of course, I don't think it's that sad because he's probably gonna go to World Finals for Clash Royale Leagues. I think that might offset it, but at least frustrated. Like, wait, I can qualify for CRL and I can't win the best of one circle competition? Get out of here.
Get out of here. Well, I guess at least, again, big shout out to our producer, Tasty, who was saying in April he was able to pick up 2 wins. So he has qualified 3 times for Royale Masters, but averaging less than 1 win per showing is one of the best CRL players in the world. So that just lets you guys know that anything can happen. Let's take a look here at our leaderboard. And Rich, a tie. I think this is our first tie.
Yeah, Aslan and Adriel both putting up 5, getting the 75 for qualifying, plus another 5 hundo on the back of that one. I think the big breakout here, though, and look, it's a different kind of competition. It's a lot of best of ones, whatever it is. But a nice showing from Nadir to come out with 4 and put himself in the mix with all these really, really well-established players.
Yeah, and it really did feel like our well-established players just took a little bit longer to heat up today. I mean, especially Samuel Basodo, who was finally able to pick up a win in the last match of the day. But, you talk about that run that Nadir went on. He was taking down heavy hitters. And then they all kind of felt like they found their footing in the second and third legs of our run today. But once again, another super, super fun day, giving away $3,000+, all the players getting money for qualifying, even if they didn't get a win. And, of course, a very, very tight race to the top.
A very tight race indeed. And of course, we've done a lot of Royale Masters, but this is not it. There's a ton of fun offerings for Royale Masters. And Andrew, everyone watching right now can play in these.
Absolutely, guys. I say it on every single one of the broadcasts, whether it's King of the Hill, whether it's dual mode, whether it's party mode, go and join the Discord. They have all the information you need. They make it very, very easy for you guys to get involved in the competition. They send out reminders to let you know when you need to sign up for those qualifiers. All that stuff is in that Discord. And of course, follow them on Twitter. And of course, subscribe, whether you're watching on YouTube or follow on Twitch. That's the best way to make sure that you don't miss any of the action here. And there's a lot of Royale Masters action in 2023.
A ton of Royale Masters action, and we've seen a lot of players who are not big names make it and come here and succeed and make some money. Shout out Nadir on a great day, and shout out you next time, who I think will be able to... I think it's you, yeah. No, I am talking about you. You will make some money here next time at Royale Masters. And for everybody here, for my buddy Andrew Guy, for Tasty in the booth, and for the whole Royale Masters squad, thanks for watching, thanks for being here. We'll see you right back here next month for more King of the Hill.